Boom, baby, we're live. Welcome to Interview with a Man, episode 749. We're jumping right into it. Andrew Wilson, Destiny, and we're going to do live reaction to this because I want to show you how much of a lying snake Destiny is and how he really doesn't use any logic or reason in his debating. He just has an agenda, which is just stay on the left-leaning side no matter what. And he was recently banned off a kick by saying that the person who had passed away at the Trump rally, Corey, deserved it, you know, and if any of his fans go there, if they die, he'll laugh at them too. So he's obviously really deranged and messed up since his whore wife left him. She was cheating on him with another beta, more alpha beta than him. Anyways, it's hilarious to watch this guy tweak out on drugs and watch his career fail. So it's phenomenal. Let's take a look here and watch what happens.
Ended there at about 2:57.
They're saying right now that it's January 6th was an insurrection, which was obviously not the case at all.
Andrew, you're up on our channel. They can see you. I don't know if it's on your.
Yeah, we're good on mine too.
Okay, you are. Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that we're there. So, but you are definitely up on, and whoever's speaking, I always make them the main person. So, Destiny, I'm going to put this.
My definition is pretty clear. There is an assemblage. There's a clear resistance to the implementation or the execution of some federal law. The resistance has an aim to make use of force or intimidation, and it's gathered for a particular public purpose. BLM almost automatically fails on the fact that these were not usually demonstrations against federal law. I don't know the federal law or the federal thing that was being resisted by BLM. But again, I'm happy to dive into any particular BLM supposed insurrection or riot if you'd like. But again, I mean, that has nothing to do with January 6th. And if you want, then you can see that entire argument and we can move on to analyzing individual BLM instances. But again, you'd have to show that there was some implementation or carrying out of some federal function for it to be an insurrection against the United States government. States might have their own definitions of state insurrections. I'm unaware of any. So to say again, my definition of insurrection, like very clearly as for elements, if you want to suggest an alternate definition that you feel more accurately comports with what you would consider an insurrection to be, that's fine. But we can't just say that it's nebulous and there is no definition when we have we've got references made in our.
And the thing about this guy too, like the state police that was around the Capitol, they were opening doors, letting people in. Like, this was clearly a setup. And in addition to that, a lot of these guys are getting released with no charges now. It's all weaponization of the political justice system against the Republicans and the MAGA people in order to demonize them, because the deep state and the people who are in control are losing power and they're losing to MAGA, and MAGA is growing every day. And that's why recently there was an attempt on President Trump's life. So people like him, this guy is just a worm. He's a real, if you look at his history too, all his text messages coming out, very weird stuff, saying he likes to lick the cum out of women's vaginas from their boyfriend, saying he loves giving blowjobs. He's just texting these girls all this creepy, weird stuff. He's also on record saying that pedophilia should be okay. He was defending it back in the day. So he's clearly a deranged, drug-using, like messed up individual. That's why his wife left him. That's why he's constantly self-destructing. He has a lot of inner game issues, and you're going to watch this guy spiral. Yeah, you could say he has clout and all that stuff, but does that really matter if you're just like a morally bankrupt person and you're like just this perverted dick sucker? I don't know. You guys can trade clout for dick sucking if you want, but not me.
When we should be thinking, like, what was the definition of insurrection at the time the 14th Amendment was drafted?
Okay, that's 2 minutes and 40 seconds. You don't want to use the rest of the 20 seconds, Destiny? Okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, we can. If this ends up going into like a whole bunch of like BLM stuff, I mean, we can get to that, but that has no bearing on whether J6 would be considered an insurrection or not. So.
Okay. So 2 minutes and 57 seconds. That completes round one. I will restart the clock. We'll move into round two. I'll turn it back to you, Andrew.
How's the audio, guys?
Ready, and I'll turn the clock on.
So I'm not claiming that an internal critique and saying that if you're going to apply these nebulous standards to this, then you must apply them to this. If this category, if category A over here also would include everything which includes a riot, then we would need to know what the delineating factor is. He claims here there must be some federal element. However, that's not in his definition. His definition does not include any federal element. To go over his definition again, an assemblage resisting law by force or intimidation for public purpose. It doesn't say anything about a federal element. He just pulled that out of his ass. I don't know where the hell he got that, but it's definitely not in his definition. If it was, he should have said that that was in his definition. He said he keeps going back to this illogical idea that just because X doesn't happen doesn't mean X isn't true. Yeah, that's true, but it also doesn't mean X is true. So making the claim that, well, wait a second, Andrew, just because they weren't actually charged with insurrection doesn't mean they weren't guilty of insurrection. Well, that's nice, but it doesn't mean they were either. And I have the evidence on my side as none of them were actually prosecuted for insurrection. None of them were prosecuted for insurrection.
I just said that.
And Trump was acquitted for inciting insurrection. So the evidence is on my side. He would actually have to demonstrate that this was an insurrection and that they were all wrong, that they were completely incorrect in not charging it this way. He just keeps saying, well, there's a variety of reasons why they didn't. Well, that's nice. Couldn't one of the reasons be because it wasn't an insurrection? Yes, that seems to be a very obvious reason, doesn't it? Going back to my opening, I just want to kind of point out that Destiny has changed his entire idea on this, whereas at first he claimed in 2021, this was in no way an insurrection, that it fit the criteria of a riot better from anybody who's looking at it objectively. I agree with him. That's exactly what it fits.
Destiny
But he
just
still
chases
has
the narrative.
not
That's all he
demonstrated
does.
at all
Because he's
that this
a
was
guy that
actually
needs
an
views. He's a
insurrection. He just
view
says, well,
whore.
I
That's
have
what he
this
is.
nebulous definition. He also says, give me a counter definition. It's not my burden to give you a counter definition. What do you mean? I'm not calling him insurrectionist. You're calling him insurrectionist. I don't have to define for you what that means. You have to define for me what that means. Giving me these four elements here is meaningless unless you can tell me what goes in those categories specifically that does not go in the category for rioting.
Quiet for you.
Because as I look
Everybody
at
else
an
is perfect,
assemblage,
so might be your phone.
resisting any law
30 seconds.
by force or intimidating or for public, that could all just be rioting. That does not really tell me what goes in the category. You didn't include federal anything. So I would like for you to actually expand on this definition so I can understand what the hell you're talking about and why the J6ers specifically fit this criteria.
All right. That is 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Destiny, I'll turn it to you whenever you're ready. And we are in round 2 right now, the bottom of round 2.
Yeah, so people like
Here comes the
again,
cope.
So there's 2 parts to the
Here comes the cope.
2 elements that I don't think would fit. So the first one is an assemblage that would clearly fit a riot, I think, but it would fit a riot and it would fit an insurrection. The second part is resisting a particular law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. There are plenty of riots that aren't riots to resist like the implementation of a law or to interfere necessarily with like some government proceeding. We can imagine a million reasons why people might riot outside of a baseball game. People might riot in protest to a statement that was made or in relation to, I don't know, the outcome of a sporting event. Like there's tons of people that can riot that aren't rioting with the goal of resisting the implementation of a particular law or trying to interfere with the course of some government proceeding.
So stupid. If you think those
part two,
people
the second
going to the
element was
Capitol
really
were going to
wouldn't comport with
overthrow the
most
government
riots.
with
And then the third one
flags
is the third element
and
by
signs.
force or
What are they going to go
intimidation.
grab
I
Mike
would say
Pence
that
and beat him up?
riots generally have
What are you,
a
gay?
forceful or intimidating aspect to them, although they generally happen spontaneously. Usually they're not planned in advance to use like force or intimidation. To quote Justice Greer, quote, legal authorities carefully distinguished planned insurrections from spontaneous riots. Justice Robert Greer charged the grand jury in the United States v. Hanway that the defendant who...
By the way, I'm going to just go crazy on Rumble and delete it after, so you're going to want to watch that.
Greer insisted that spontaneous riots were not insurrections, that insurrections required a commitment to use force to resist law, not spur-of-the-moment violence.
This guy's
Most
tweaking on
riots
some
just
kind of drugs,
like
too.
Happen. It's pretty rare that
His
they
eyes are
planned
super
in advance.
dilated.
And I think
You
we
see his
all agree
pupils?
that
Look
if
at
they
this.
are
Look at the
planned in
size of his
advance, it
pupils,
takes on a
guys.
much different character.
He's on
and
some kind of drugs
arguably,
for sure.
could
He's
call
addicted to
under
drugs. He's
it, like
on
different
the
types
record
of
saying that.
crimes. If people engage in rioting, it's not good. But if people are literally planning it out in advance, we're calling in a whole bunch of different crimes there than just the simple thing of calling a particular thing a riot. And then for the fourth thing, when we say for a public purpose, the fourth element, this is the second thing that I don't think most riots would necessarily be in opposition to, that we are insurrecting for some sort of public grievance relating to like the actions of a particular government. So like you might riot, for instance, like BLM might riot against like police violence.
Real quick, take a look at this chat. Look at this. I'm going to show you real quick. Look at the size of his pupils. This guy's on drugs. How are you this dilated? That's drugs, bro.
of federal and constitutional rules. He was contravening the 12th Amendment,
10
and he was
seconds.
resisting the Electoral Count Act. Donald Trump, he took numerous illegal actions to prevent the peaceful transition of presidential power. This is like a function of the government. He engaged in an ongoing course
And
of
that is
conduct aimed
time.
at
3
producing
minutes.
violent resistance
3
to the peaceful
minutes.
transfer
That
of
is time.
presidential power, and
That
he
is
was attempting
time.
to decide support to attack Congress. Yeah. Whether or not somebody starts doesn't matter. Okay.
That is time. So what I'll do is that concludes round 2.
I'm so proud of Myron.
Andrew,
proud of him.
I'll turn it back to you unless you want me to give Destiny a little bit extra time, and I can give you that extra time as well on the back end, but I'll let you choose that.
Yeah, I'm fine. He can finish.
Okay. Destiny, go ahead and finish, and I will
Yeah,
add that
sure.
extra
The final
time to
point
you.
was that yeah, but my final statement is, okay, if you look at the Colorado court case, they found that Donald Trump acted as part of an assemblage that he helped bring into being. It said that Trump was resisting the enforcement of federal and constitutional rules, that Trump took numerous illegal actions to prevent the peaceful transition of presidential power. He engaged in an ongoing course of conduct aimed at producing violent resistance to the peaceful transfer of presidential power. He attempted to incite his supporters to attack Congress,
John and
which they
Denang,
did, and that Trump's
I agree
speech
with you.
occurred sufficiently close in time and place to when and where the insurrection
Drug
took
addict.
place to be considered an incitement. Like every single part of this, like very easily and very cleanly meets the definition of insurrection. If we want to argue that my definition isn't clean or that my 4 elements aren't being met, that's well, I don't know how we can argue that. I think all 4 elements are being met. If we want to argue that, well, every single riot would, fall into this, then we could say, well, fine, Destiny, I agree. For your definition of insurrection, fine, January 6th was an insurrection. Now let's talk about these other events. We could talk about whether they fit or don't fit. Or you
Okay.
can give me your own definition of insurrection, and then we can go from there.
Okay, that added an extra 55 seconds. So we'll go into round 3. Andrew, I will give you that. So you will have 3 minutes and 55 seconds to take your time. So I'll start at the clock now.
Yeah. So again, trying to put the burden on me to give you a definition of your claim is insane. As we went through your definition here, it's really funny because I'm going to use your own logic back to you. Just because they weren't charged with an insurrection doesn't mean it wasn't an insurrection. Oh, okay. Well, they were actually charged with elements of rioting. So I'm going to say it was actually rioting. And I'm also going to say that, wait a second, your definition here seems to be more about rioting than anything else by your own claim. An assemblage would fit a riot, says Destiny. That's his first claim. Resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. It wouldn't fit rioting itself, says Destiny, even though rioting itself is against the law. What do you mean? Of course it's impeding the law. Well, how could it not be impeding the law? Rioting itself is against the law. I don't know where the hell you came up with that. By force or intimidation, Destiny concedes riots require force for a public purpose.
Now,
he concedes that's a riot.
Look at Andrew's
so really,
pupils.
under his definition, this
Look at
is
his
just
pupils.
a riot. The only thing that we're arguing about here is
Normal.
number 2, resisting any law or interfering with the
Normal.
course of a government proceeding. Let's try this again.
Non-dilated. Look how
Resisting
small his pupils
any
are.
law or interfering with the
Destiny's
course of
on
a government
drugs, for
proceeding.
sure.
A riot
He's
itself
on the
is
Joe Biden drugs.
resisting the law because it's illegal to riot. So I don't understand
Andrew
how that,
Wilson's in a
again,
darker room
would
too.
not
His
just be a
pupils
riot.
are actually a
All
little
of
bit
these
bigger
things seem to
because he's
fall into the
in a
category
darker room.
of
But
what people were
Destiny's in
charged
a lighter
with,
room,
which
and
is
his
much
pupils are way
more
bigger.
along and akin to rioting than it is any type of insurrection. He still hasn't told us the distinction that fits in this category, why this isn't a riot, even though everybody was charged under that kind of branch of rioting and not charged for insurrection. This is a garbage definition. It's totally nebulous, right? And he keeps on saying, well, wait a second, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and concede that unless you can go against all 4 of these points, why don't I actually have to do that? All I need to do is say, okay, all these 4 points fit a different criteria better than insurrection. And apparently he agrees. He agrees on point 1, point 3, and point 4. The only thing he argues is point 2, but his argument for point 2 makes no sense because rioting itself is illegal. So therefore you are resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Well, the government proceeding is to enforce law. You would be interfering with the government enforcing law if you're rioting. So all of these fall under the better criteria of riot, which is, it's totally consistent in my mind because that was the criteria in which people were charged, not with insurrection. And I really need Destiny to answer to that.
Okay, that was 2 minutes and 40 seconds. You still have a minute left, Andrew. You're going to concede that round then?
Yeah, I'll let him go ahead and answer to it.
Cool. So I'm gonna. So
here comes the cope.
I will turn it back to you, Destiny. We're in round 3, and this is the second part of round 3. So your turn, Destiny. I'll start the clock back up for you.
Breaking a law and resisting law are not the same thing.
Look at
Usually
those
when
pupils.
people riot, they're not rioting with the purpose of making arson or murder or
Those pupils are more than
or whatever other
50%
crimes
of
would be
his
broken
entire
to commit
iris.
those legal things. Usually they're breaking laws, not with the intent of like resisting the implementation or the execution of those laws, or resisting or contravening the execution of like some function of government. When people were rioting on January 6th, the goal of that was to stop the execution of the Electoral Count Act. It was to stop the purpose of the government, the execution function of government to do the peaceful transfer of power. They weren't simply engaged in violence and breaking the law. They were resisting the carrying out of the law, the Electoral Count Act, the ECA. And again, I don't know, we can loop on this over and over again, but again, if I can show you in Kenosha, if I can show you in Seattle, if I can show you a riot, if I can give you a video of cities burning, people screaming and throwing shit, of, you know, property being destroyed or damaged, and then you were to go, wow, that kind of looks like a riot to me, I would go, yeah, kind of.
John, do you have evidence of that? John and Denang says Rollo Tomasi recently proved Destiny is paid by the current admin with many other influencers to push narratives for left. I believe it. I believe it 1,000%.
Event was a thing. Remember, when you levy a charge at somebody, a criminal charge, what you're really saying is that you can take a person, an individual, and prove beyond a reasonable doubt that no reasonable mind would agree that something else could have happened in front of a jury. That's what criminal court is for. Proving that somebody engaged in a crime beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal court is not the standard that we use to declare a particular thing a thing. You don't have to prove,
John, show me proof what Rollo said,
that a thing was an insurrection or that a thing was a riot, unless we were charging somebody with an actual crime.
Okay, that's 1:50 on the clock. So that concludes round 3, and I'm going to turn it to you, gentlemen. You guys can let me know what you want. We can either do another round of 3 minutes uninterrupted debating, if you guys want to formulate your arguments a bit more, because I know there is some disagreement.
I would like to do one more round.
You would like to do one more? Destiny, are you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay, and then after that, so we'll go into a 4th round with the 3-minute debate time limit where no interruptions. Then after that, we can get into the 5 minutes of discourse between you two where you can actually speak. But is that fair for everybody?
Sure.
Cool.
Sure.
All right, so I will go ahead and reset the clock. This will be round 4. Take it away, Andrew.
Yeah, so this is an absurd argument. We'll go right back to Destiny's logic again. He says just because somebody wasn't charged with X doesn't mean X didn't happen. This is the same. This is complete and total obfuscation, by the way, because ultimately what's going on here is that these do fit the criteria much better for a riot. And under the purview of rioting, these are the types of charges which were levied at these people. Destiny says specifically under point 2, he said, and he didn't answer to this. He said, resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding wouldn't fit rioting. Yes, it does fit rioting. It fits rioting better than anything else I can think of. Yes, you are immediately, upon rioting, resisting the law, and you are obstructing the law immediately. That is what a riot is. It's an unlawful assembly. So how he could say
John Alba, you're right.
In fact, each point, he concedes on point 1, an assemblage that would fit a riot. An assemblage would fit a riot. That's point 1. He agrees. Okay. Point 3, by force or intimidation, he agrees on point 3 that is a riot. He agrees on point 4. He conceded on that as well. And then he just conceded on point 2. He couldn't exactly tell us why resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding wouldn't fit a riot. Of course it fits a riot. All of these, in fact, fit the events of January 6th perfectly. Perfectly. And if he's conceding that, hey, these fit a riot perfectly, the events of January 6th were a riot under this definition, which he essentially has conceded is true, then the charges were appropriate that this was a riot and not an insurrection. This could not have been an insurrection. His own definition proves that this is more akin to a riot. He still hasn't really told us, by the way, what an insurrection is, just these kind of 4 nebulous points. But these 4 nebulous points fit a riot perfectly. Perfectly. And he's basically conceded to 3 of them on the outset. And then on the second, he's basically conceded that as well. Because resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding would fit a riot by its very nature. The reason it would fit a riot by its very nature is because it's immediately an unlawful assembly. You're resisting the law. You're resisting the police. You're resisting. So whether that's done at a federal level or a state level, I think it would still meet the same fate of being more akin to a riot. This definition really moves towards a riot and not towards an insurrection. He has not told us the distinction yet. And so again, I think that the entire reason he wants this only painted as an insurrection, even though nobody's ever been charged with an insurrection, even though Trump was cleared of inciting an insurrection,
what's up? You're right.
so that he can make justifications for why the other side deserves what it gets, because they're a bunch of traitors. Thus far, no, I'm sorry. This definition or this logic adds up. The logic of saying, well, just because they weren't charged with a thing doesn't mean it wasn't the thing. Fine, but that doesn't mean it was the thing either. And by your criteria, it seems like it was this other thing.
Okay, that's 3 minutes and 10 seconds. I will make the clock the same for you, Destiny, to keep it fair. I will start the timer if you're ready now.
Yeah, I guess we're just going to loop on these points. Resisting a law is not the same thing as breaking a law. If you could show me that there was a particular riot where people assembled and the goal of that riot was when they were rioting, they wanted to riot to make rioting legal, and that they had gathered, in order to change the law in a particular area, and they were going to use force and intimidation to do it. We're here to riot today because we're going to make rioting legal. Then sure, then we could argue that that's probably an insurrection. But I mean, these are the four elements that were historically understood at the time. Nobody had any issues at the time charging people with crimes of insurrection. Nobody had any confusion at the time historically. There was Shays rebellions, the Whiskey insurrection, the Burr insurrection, John Brown's raids. You had convictions of, like a Pennsylvania farmer, I think, set fire to a house of a tax collector in 1794. He was charged with insurrection. John Freeze and friends made a show of arms that resulted in the release of
1794. Is that what we're citing?
That was considered an insurrection. In 1847, when Hispanic and Native Americans attacked occupying American officials in New Mexico, that was considered an insurrection. In 1851, when Pennsylvanians obstructed official efforts to capture an alleged fugitive slave, that was an insurrection. In 1856, when there were rival forces in the United States that were violently resisting the...
What a bunch of cope, bro. This is what these liberals do. They just point to a bunch of examples that are completely irrelevant to this stuff. Like, you're talking about 1794. Are you kidding me? Joshua SV 499 super chat, bell notification on, yet I only get notified through Telegram. Do you have any idea how to fight the shadow ban? How many channels do you subscribe to on YouTube? If you subscribe to a bunch of channels, notifications don't work. So you need to go. I bet you have a bunch of subscribes to YouTube. YouTube is broken, bro. YouTube does not work. YouTube is like Destiny. It's gay. It's broken, and it's spiraling out of control.
Crime of X is not the same thing as the event of X. I don't know why we keep saying this. Nobody was charged with insurrection, therefore there was no insurrection. If I walk into a room and I see a person's throat cut, can I not say that there was a murder here if nobody was charged with murder? If I see 20 people setting fire to a house and they all run away and nobody gets charged with arson, can I not say that an arson happened? If I look on video and I see that there's 500 people blowing up, some shit, and they manage to run away, or the cops, can't arrest any of these people or charge them with like the formal, crime of rioting, does that mean there was no riot that took place? The crime of X is different than the event of X. And right now we're talking about if January 6th was an insurrection, not did any individual person engage in the criminal behavior of insurrection. That would be a separate conversation. If we want to have that conversation, we could, but we would have to first concede that an insurrection did indeed take place on January 6th. And I believe the Colorado Supreme Court engaged in...
Somebody says Dusty's coked out of his mind, or it's Vyvanse, because his eyes are super, super dilated compared to Andrew Wilson. Oh, look at this, dude. That's not a normal person right there, bro. He's on drugs.
We're putting insurrection in the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to prevent prior oath takers from holding office again who would engage in insurrection.
Okay. So that completes round 4 of the 3-minute uninterrupted rounds. If you guys are okay with it, we will move on to the 5-minute round where you guys are able to actually have open discourse.
Well, I have a quick counter if Destiny wants to agree to this for the purpose of fairness. I'm willing to do. I'm willing to.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to show you guys something. So I just looked up the side effects of Vyvanse, which Destiny has been on record asking people on fucking social media for it. Take a look here. This is what it's known as, lisdexamfetamine, right? And you can see you or your caregiver should tell your doctor immediately if you experience any of the following symptoms: fast pounding or irregular heartbeat, sweating, dilated pupils, abnormally excited mood, irritability, restlessness, definitely fall asleep, staying asleep, hostility, aggression, anxiety, loss of appetite, loss of coordination, uncontrollable movement of part of the body, his jaw, flushed skin, vomiting, stomach pain, and thinking about harming or killing oneself, yada, yada, yada. This guy's on drugs, bro. This guy's 100%. Like, I would... Andrew Wilson needs to do the Trump approach. Like, you got to take a drug test if you want to debate me. He's on drugs for sure. There's no doubt.
Even attack or interrogate. So I'm not even sure what I would do on the Inquisition round. So I feel like it'd be better to just do back and forth.
I'm from Miami. I know what coke guys. Hey, you gotta bite your thumb there. Gotta calm your nerves.
You guys are good with no more. You don't need any more 3-minute rounds to
feel a touch of the nose.
No. No? Okay. So I will go ahead and set the timer here.
Drug
for
addict.
5 minutes. I guess who wants to kick it off?
I can kick it off real quick.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
Destiny, would you agree with me that the motivation for demonizing the opposition political party often revolves around calling them traitors, accusing them of
Look at
treason,
Andrew's behavior.
and pushing for some type of villainization that they are against the country, they are against you, they are against everybody?
For another debate, maybe, but that's not at all any of the subject matter here.
Well, I think it is. I think it ties in because I believe that the motivation for why you're claiming that the other side are a bunch of insurrectionists, though you have no direct evidence of this, and your own criteria is just that of basically a riot, that your motivation is just to demonize the opposition.
Sure, but this isn't a debate over my motivation. I could be motivated by 100 million different bad faith factors, and literally none of them would be relevant to this conversation. It could be the fact that the DNC actually paid me money to give this precise argument, and Kamala's on the phone with me right now, and it wouldn't have any impact on this particular debate.
I think it would be. I think that the motivation for why you're making the argument itself would have an impact on the debate. But I am willing to concede that if you just want to keep it to the material, we can. Let's move over to point 2 then. Point 2, you say resisting any law or interference with the course of a government proceeding wouldn't fit rioting itself. How does that not fit rioting itself? Of course it does.
Well, let's say, for instance, the purpose of a riot was because you felt like the law wasn't being enforced. It wouldn't make sense to call that part of an insurrection. Let's say, for instance, that there was let's say that there was a lynching of a person, and you felt like the cops weren't, upholding their duty or whatever, and so you decided to have a protest that turns into a riot, and you all show up.
Talking about a lynching in 2024, this is also just more cope. Like what do you like? All these phantom things you're using as defense points. What are you talking about? Who's getting lynched in 2024 in America?
Resisting the laws.
That would be the same case with insurrection then.
Insurrection
would also require intent, right?
Yes. Yeah, correct. Yes. So the intent would be the contravening of the Electoral Count Act. When people say we need to march and make our voices heard on January 6th to the Capitol grounds where people are going to protest, they're protesting the execution of the Electoral Count Act, which demanded that Vice President Pence count the electoral votes. Donald Trump didn't want that. He made it very clear in the days preceding. Him, Bannon, Eastman, Chesbrough, and everybody else that was working alongside him, Sidney Powell, everybody else, was saying that we need to prevent Pence from counting the electoral vote. That was the execution of a lawful government function.
Yeah, but even if
an act, and that's what people are going there to protest
even
against.
if all that's true, Destiny, it still wouldn't matter because the events of January 6th themselves, the intent of the people could have just been to riot, not indeed to commit to any sort of treasonous insurrection activity. And you have failed to demonstrate this time and time again, how this actually would meet the criteria of an insurrection. Them showing up, and just like your take in 2021, right? When you say, hey, look, the damage would have been way worse if they had shown up with the purposes of actual insurrection or some type of 1776 mindset. This is the most armed nation on planet Earth. How in the world can you say these people showed up specifically in order to do that? That makes no sense, man.
None of this law, none of that argumentation was secretary. People they obviously showed up to protest the certification of the vote. They were called there by Donald Trump.
If it's a non sequitur, then you in 2021 were using a non sequitur when you made the argument that from the appearance of this, it could not have been an insurrection.
2021 Destiny was incorrect because 2021 Destiny didn't have the historical context to understand an insurrection. If you want to bring him on here and talk to him, you can.
I am
don't
talking
agree with
to him.
everything that
You're
I said.
not
You're
you.
not. I am 2024 Destiny. I've learned more things. I've done more studying. I've read more papers, and I've done more research on this. There is actually a strong understanding of what an insurrection is, and there was a strong historical understanding of what an insurrection is. And the idea that a bunch of people were called on January 6th, the date wasn't a mistake. When Donald Trump sent them down there to protest, when he said we need Mike Pence to do the right thing, what was he talking about? He wanted him to contravene the law, and that's what people marched down there for him to do.
Donald Trump said 30 minutes before this began that this needed to remain a peaceful protest on
he didn't.
Twitter.
He never said that.
He did. I actually have the tweet.
Didn't.
I have the tweet. He did say that.
In the speech, he said to fight like hell, and in the speech, he said that we need to go
I'm talking about his tweets. Why would a person put out a tweet to be peaceful if their intent was insurrection, Destiny?
Why would a person call a protest on January 6th? What do you think they were protesting?
What do you mean?
Destiny's not answering the question.
People call protests all the time. That doesn't mean that
we're not talking about other protests. I'm asking you, what was the purpose of the protest on January 6th?
The purpose of the protest was to go out and show support for Donald J. Trump.
For what?
Well, there was a variety of reasons. I think.
No,
that
give me. Wait. Are you telling me we can't?
I'm going to give you a variety of reasons. You can't say no. Are you saying there wasn't a variety of reasons why people didn't show up?
No, I think there was one clear reason.
Oh, there's only one reason why everybody
clear
showed
reason.
up.
10 seconds.
Correct.
10 seconds.
Okay, what is the one clear reason? There was not a variety of reasons. Some people didn't show up just because they wanted to see what was happening. Some people didn't show up just to support the president. Some people didn't show up because they really like to go to protest. Everybody showed up for one reason, right?
I didn't say everybody showed up for one reason. I said they were called there for one reason.
Guys,
that was to protest the certification of the election.
Guys, that is time. I'm happy to let this play out longer if you guys want, and add an extra minute to the clock. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, we can add an extra
I'll
minute.
add an extra minute to the clock, and this is still round one of the open discourse, but just try to limit it to 1 minute, and then we'll go into round two of it, and we can go from there. And if we need more rounds at the 5-minute mark, we can absolutely do that. So
I have a problem with him ascribing motivation to all. He says there's one clear reason why everybody showed up. That's clearly not true. That doesn't even logically make sense. He could never demonstrate in a million years that there was only one clear reason why everybody showed up. That's a nonsensical argument, Destiny.
That's not the argument that I'm making. If the debate is whether or not January 6th is an insurrection, not did every single person on January 6th engage in the crime of insurrection, or did every single person on January 6th go with the intent to commit an insurrection. Why did you say there was one clear reason? I said that there was a clear reason why people were called there, because there was. Donald Trump called people there to protest not on January 5th and not on January 7th.
This guy has to be paid for. There's no way somebody can be this stupid.
To the ellipses that was less than a mile walk away from the Capitol building, which is where he sent every single person after his speech. He called them there on the day of the certification of the vote.
That doesn't tell us their motivation.
Trying to pressure Pence to overturn the election.
That doesn't tell us their motivation.
That they need to go and protest for the lawful slates of electors to be counted, the illegitimate ones that he submitted, and people went there.
Even if I grant
in violent behavior, and they managed to delay the certification of the election, which is exactly. So then, do you admit then that
no, I don't admit anything. Even if I grant your logic,
they happen to do every single thing that an insurrection called for without actually engaging in an insurrection.
Guys, give me a chance to respond. So I not only do I concede nothing, but your logic.
We ran out of time on that round. So what I'll do is this: I can see that this is a dynamic conversation, and clearly it's going to go out the bounds sometimes of a time round. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and set the clock for 10 minutes. That completes round one of the open discourse. But I see that this is a dynamic argument, and me just stopping it randomly at 5 minutes would probably be stupid. So I'm going to let it play out. I'll put 10 minutes on the clock and have you guys go at it. Is that okay with both of you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Destiny, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because I don't want to interrupt you guys again like that. So I'll just go ahead and put 10 minutes on the clock.
Tweaker.
And I will start it right now. You guys could pick right off where you left off, Andrew. Yeah. Sorry about that.
So to respond, right, and I'll be more charitable with the time back your way now that we have 10 minutes, Destiny, but it's actually an illogical argument to make, to say, even if Donald Trump had some certain intent in his head, that would not mean that the people who were showing up for the protest had that intent. So the thing is like, for both ways, it's a double entendre for your own logic. Either one, you claim, wait a second, there's one clear reason everybody showed up, or two, no, there was no clear reason why everybody showed up. They had multiple motivations, even if Trump himself had a different motivation. This is illogical argumentation.
I'm sorry, but this would never be applied to anything. If somebody says, hey, guys, we're all going to show up.
That's not an argument either.
And I'm making the argument right now. If somebody were to make the call and say, hey, guys, we're all going to show up to go and blow this building up, and a bunch of people showed up, and then a bunch of them marched for the crowd, and then they all went, and a building got blown up, we wouldn't say like, oh, well, we don't know what the intention of the crowd was. We don't know what the intention of the leader there was. We don't know what actually happened there, because we can't divine the intention of every single individual person.
That's a ridiculous straw man.
We can say you can call it a straw man, but the idea that in order for me, okay, hold on. What would I need to show?
Hang on, let me respond to your first argument.
Wait, hold on. What would I need to show?
Wait, no, there's no skirting. Let me respond to the argument.
But you're not even letting me talk. You can respond to my argument.
You made an argument, let me respond, and then you can ask the second argument. I think that's fair. So when you're talking about this from a logical standpoint, when you say, oh, if somebody called and said, hey, we're all going to blow this building up, yes, I would agree that you could probably ascribe the motivation to it then. Can you show me a tweet or any type of anything from Donald Trump saying, hey, guys, show up, we're going to do an insurrection? No, you just made the shit
I can.
up.
Okay, fine. So I can. So as part of Donald Trump's speech, I'll give you 2 quotes. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore. And that's what this is all about. And use a favorite term that all you people really came up with. We will stop the steal. Today, I will lay out just some of the evidence proving that we won this election. We won it by a landslide. This was not a close election. The first quote. The second quote, we must stop the steal. And then we must ensure that such outrageous election fraud never happens again, can never be allowed to happen again. When he says stop the steal, when they're at the Capitol building on January 6th, and when the election is being certified, what does stop the steal mean there?
Wait a second. So first of all, you're attributing to Donald Trump's rhetoric here something which he may not have intended. None of that actually shows or demonstrates that he was calling for an insurrection on the Capitol. You are just kind of ascribing that motivation onto it for the purposes of convenience. You have to show me there where he calls, like your example was, if I say we're all going to show up and blow up this building, that was your example, and then people show up and do it, we can understand their motivation. I agree. You have to show me where he says, okay, guys, we're all going to show up and do an insurrection. You can't then take words that don't say anything about an insurrection and say, but I think he meant that though.
So then just before I answer this, what would I have to show you to show that an insurrection was what Trump was planning? What kind of evidence would you need?
You would have to give me the criteria first and foremost of something which fit the criteria of an insurrection better than some other thing. And you would have to make it refutable.
He puts his hand on there to calm himself down from tweaking out. Look at him. His jaw is moving under his hand.
Criteria is,
can't stop
I'm
moving.
going to give you what I think an insurrection is.
Look at him.
And it fits
shaking.
a different criteria better than an insurrection. And under that criteria, that's what people were basically charged under. Then it sounds like the other thing makes more sense than an insurrection.
So are we going with the
totally
argument that
seems to
for
track
X
to me.
event to have happened, X, like some person needs to have been charged with the crime?
No, your logic there is faulty as well.
Then why do you have the second
let me
element there for me
respond.
proving?
Let me respond.
Hold on,
So-
you can't just talk for 20 minutes and then as soon as I say
Well, I
one
didn't.
sentence,
You
you
can't
ramble
ask
for
me
another
a
20
question
minutes.
and then move to
I
another
can ask
question.
you a question and then ask another question as part of my question. I'm able
Yeah,
to
but
do
I
that,
wasn't
right?
even able
You
to
gave
respond.
2 elements to what needed. I
This
needed to
is this is what Destiny does. He just adds confusion and chaos to the thing and then acts like, oh, I'm so confused by your stupidity. That's what he does.
he hasn't been charged with the crime of X doesn't mean that an event related to X didn't occur. This is true.
Yeah, but the
literally
opposite
every
would
single
equally
crime.
be true. The opposite is also true. Just because they weren't charged with the crime of X doesn't mean they committed the crime of X either.
I'm not
Destiny.
making that argument. You're using this argument as a way to negate my argument.
Yes,
Just because I'm not
it's
making
called a
the
counter
opposite-
argument. Yes.
No, hold on. That would be like you saying John couldn't have murdered Jane because John wasn't there. And then I say, well, no, that's not true. And then you going, well, just because John was there doesn't mean that he murdered Jane.
Nope,
Yeah,
the
that's not
opposite.
the element that I'm
Nope, the
giving.
opposite is
I've
true.
given you 4 clear things.
Wait. No,
Would
wait.
you
Hang
like
on.
to
The
give
opposite
me
is
an
true.
argument that, or give me a definition of insurrection, or give me
Stop. Hang on. The opposite is true. I'm not saying that. So you say, oh, John murdered Jane, but that can't be true because he also may not have murdered Jane. You're making the claim John murdered Jane. And so I say, okay, that's your claim that he murdered Jane. Can you define for me what the criteria would be in which you would consider this to be murder? And you go, well, and then you define for me something that is not murder or fits some other criteria better. Would not a rational human being,
5 minutes
including
in,
you,
halfway.
take that and understand, wait, if it fits this other criteria better, it probably isn't actually murder.
what part of my, can you give me an example? I'm just curious, and I shouldn't even engage with this because so just up to this point, you've given me no
We have
definition
time.
of insurrection. You seem unwilling to.
It's not my burden.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying you've given me no,
No, I'm not
definition of
gonna- I'm
insurrection.
not- I'm
seem
giving you
unwilling to do
nothing.
so.
It's
So then
not
my
my burden
question
of
would
proof.
be: can you give me
It's
a
not my
riot?
burden.
Can you give me a riot that would fit all 4 points that I've given?
It's not
of
my
what
burden
I've
to
defined
do.
an insurrection. Well, then you must accept my definition of
I
insurrection.
don't
So
need
you're
to
saying that-
accept.
you're
Why
saying
would
that
I
my
need to accept your
definition-
definition?
Because you're saying that my definition of insurrection isn't valid because it also applies to riots. And I'm telling you very clearly, no, it doesn't, because riots don't typically happen in a planned manner to contravene the execution of some government function or the implementation of some particular law.
That's not what
So
your
I'm asking
definition
you-
says. Your
I
definition
said
says under
it's
point two,
resisting
any
some
law.
law or interfering with the course
Mhm.
of a government proceeding.
Yeah, so you're
Correct.
just changing your definition.
I'm not resisting. Do you think that resisting a law is the same thing as breaking a law?
I think that it could be synonymous inside of people's minds, but no, I could see the distinction with merit. But when you say resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding, that sure sounds like a fucking riot to me, Destiny.
Okay, can you give me an example of a riot where that happens?
Where BLM burned down a police station. That seems like it's
First,
resisting the law.
yeah, so that's what law were they resisting the implementation of? What
The
law were
law
they
of
resisting?
arson, the law of rioting, all sorts
Okay.
of laws.
So you're telling me that those riots were trying to make it so that arson was legal? Can you point me to a tweet? Can you point me to a statement where somebody was saying we're rioting because we think that the laws against arson
Wait a
are
second.
illegal?
Can you show me in your definition where it says that the purpose of the insurrection is so that they can make something else legal? Because that's nowhere in your definition, Destiny.
Resisting any law or interfering with the course of a government
Doesn't
proceeding.
say anything
Yes.
about making something else legal. You just made it up.
No, you're saying that they're resisting the law of arson. Nobody's arguing that the law of arson is bad. Just because you're breaking a law doesn't mean you're resisting
What's the
law.
or? What's the or?
3 minutes. 3
It
minutes.
says
left.
or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Would you not consider if somebody interfered with the FBI, for instance, for that to be interfering with the course of a government proceeding? Or if somebody interfered with police officers, that would be interfering with the course of a government proceeding?
Police officers are not federal police officers. If you want to talk about interfering with, if you want to talk about, where you are, because we're talking about
It's
January
not.
6th.
We have your definition. It's not required.
Where did January 6th happen?
But it does. We have your definition.
Why would I be
Destiny.
arguing about the definition of an insurrection in a state when we're talking about an insurrection that happened?
Well, then
on the
can you
Capitol
show me in your
grounds?
definition where it says it must be federal for an
I don't
insurrection
need to. We're
occur?
talking about
Well,
insurrection.
then if
that
it
occurred on
doesn't,
federal
it doesn't
grounds.
matter. So then any of the criteria which would
hilarious.
apply at the state level would still apply at the federal level for rioting. It's the
I
same
don't
thing.
know if insurrections are state defined. I'm not aware of that in the historical record.
Well, you can't
point
have a
somewhere
state
where you can-
insurrection. Why couldn't
I'm not
you?
aware of some. Can you show me where in the historical record where that's
I'm
ever
just
been
asking
made?
why you couldn't have one.
Because I'm not aware of any having occurred
That
historically.
doesn't mean you couldn't have one.
Where
You
is this scrubbed? Where did Rollo post it? Where is this scrubbed? I don't believe it. Rollo posts shit just to get clicks. Rollo doesn't know how to make money, so he just thinks, let's just make drama and then I'll get attention and then people will buy my books. That's his whole business model, and it's pathetic, just like him, and it doesn't work.
insurrection. I'm not aware of any of those. If
Yeah,
you are
but
aware of
you
one of
not
those,
being
feel free to
aware
tell
of
me.
any doesn't mean that the criteria could not apply to a state insurrection, correct?
That's correct, but we are talking.
Yeah, that,
Oh, you'll see. Don't worry, Daniel. All you guys think I'm crazy. You'll see. Don't worry. Trust me. You will all see, and it's irrefutable evidence as to why I fucking cut that old fucking loser off. Quite frankly, but it's okay. I remember when my body count was in the 40s, so I understand Rollo's frustration.
No one here has made
Yeah, it
any claims
can
about a
be.
non-federal insurrection. Okay, well, if those are your two holdouts that you
well,
think
okay.
are
Well, what is
laws that
or
is
what is
breaking the law,
or
or
interfering
that
with
the
the course of a
a-
government proceeding mean?
1
What does
minute.
that mean?
The record that I'm invoking, we're especially talking about things relating to insurrection, and we're talking about the invocation of insurrection, which is my understanding has only ever happened in federal law and in stuff relating to the United States government, not a state government. If you want to show me it happening, or show me a historical record, or a state constitution, or a state criminal statute that references insurrection, then we can talk about that if you want to.
What
But
does
we're arguing
or
about-
interfering with the course of a government proceeding mean, Destiny?
or interfering with the course of the implementation or the
30
execution
seconds.
of some particular federal law?
It has to be federal.
Yes, because we're talking about the federal government.
No,
We're
that
talking about
doesn't mean it.
insurrection.
Hang on. So
Yeah.
you're doing a classic kind of Destiny bait and switch, where you say in this particular case it would, because that's what we're talking about. Okay, that's fair, but that doesn't mean that that's what the definition says. The definition itself does not say that it must be federal.
Thank you, Daniel Bori. Appreciate you, brother. I love you so much from the bottom of my heart, all the way from Tokyo. I love you. I love you like Destiny loves Dick, and that's a lot of love.
That real quick, guys. That is 10 minutes. What I could do is, because I see that there's a discussion here between federal, if an insurrection can be federal or state.
Good job, Myron.
I'll go ahead
Crushing
and
it.
reset the clock. I think maybe this is something that we can hone in on. Can an insurrection be? Obviously we're talking about it from federal level, but can also be at a state level. Do you guys want to shift?
Red Pill
that
Lions was also a money grab because Rollo went to the fucking Hex convention, guys. Okay, Rollo can't even fucking spell NFT, and he hangs out with other people who don't know what NFT is. Just put 2 and 2 together, connect the dots. You guys are smart enough. I know you can do it.
The District of Columbia is federal.
So they
Yes,
have
it's federal.
they have no state police there at all?
What state police would they have there?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
I don't believe so. No, I'm pretty sure even
Okay.
the National Guard there directly, like the chain of command goes up to the president, not a.
No, it was Nancy Pelosi, dick sucker,
Yes.
who called it off. By the way, she did not assign the National Guard to go to the White House. And then why were people opening doors for them as they approached the fucking White House? Why were people there? And there were feds there too. There were feds, masked up feds, incentivizing people to be crazier. Like this is all like visibly evident on all the fucking video footage.
about murder as it's defined in federal law, not in state law. We're talking about an insurrection on whether or not January 6th was an insurrection or not. So I'm only going to be appealing to federal law or federal historical understandings of an insurrection against the United States. So I don't know why we're saying, well, what about a state insurrection? I don't know. I'm not even aware if a state insurrection is a possible thing. I've never heard that reference before.
This is
it's
a
not
semantic.
Hey, Don J, what's up? He says, what's up? Sorry for calling you the wrong name in Thailand. Glad to see you putting out content. Thank you, Don J. Nice to see you. Looking nice and Chad-orific. Looking jacked in that fucking crew tee there, buddy. I'll be back in Bangkok on August 26th to September 9th. So if you guys want to come out, go and shoot me a DM. We're having a huge program out there.
Or that includes the words like in this present point of time and not like in the future or time traveling in the past, or that doesn't include like dimension C138, or that like there's a million other things that I didn't include.
Yeah, I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Because why would I include the definition of against the United States when we're talking about an insurrection that happened?
Guys, smash the like button, please. Share this. Send this to your biggest incel friend and show him how incels are going to get dominated by strong Christian men.
Add on my second
Aren't
part.
you appealing to a state court, for instance? Like, what are you talking about here?
Appealing to a state court for what?
Aren't you appealing to a state court for this definition? Isn't that what you said? Did I get that wrong?
I'm appealing to right now. I'm appealing to federal history. What are you talking about?
Well, I'm asking, where did you get this definition? Let's start with that.
There's a writer who studied I think it was constitutional law specializing in the 14th Amendment. His name is Mark Graber, and these are the 4 qualifications that he basically lists out, and then he goes through a number of historical examples to say as much. There's also a much longer paper written about the I think it's like the sweeping power of Section 3, written by I think Baud and Paulson, who write like a 130-page paper where they go through listing like the historical understanding of insurrection. If you want, we can dive through any part of the paper. Or we
does
can any part of the
he say
or...
in this paper that it's a requirement that this be done at the federal level?
I don't think anybody talks about state insurrections. I don't think you can levy war or engage in insurrection against a state. I'm just not aware of that. I've never heard of that brought up before.
Yeah, but
like,
I'm just
like for
asking.
instance, like when you say treason, if I were to give you a definition of treason, I don't know if you can commit treason against like the state of Iowa. I think that's only a federal crime.
I have no idea either. This is why I'm asking.
I can't say for sure because maybe there is evidence of it out there, but I don't know. Prepared to debate that because it's a debate about federal.
All I'm doing is doing an internal critique to try to figure out if this is consistent across the board. Your definition. I'm not even saying that there's necessarily anything wrong with it, but what I am saying is that there's something wrong with the fact that it seems to fit rioting far better than it would in insurrection. So if we go over these one at a time. An assemblage would fit a riot. That's what Destiny says. By force or intimidation fits a riot. That's what Destiny says.
An assemblage of people for a common purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. An assemblage of people. Yes.
Riot.
So they've come for a common purpose. Okay. And then 2 is to resist any law or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Right. Resisting a law. Resisting a law. That's not just breaking a law, but you're there to resist a particular law. There's one you really don't like. And then 3, you're showing up.
Yeah, but wait, we have the or there. We have the or interfering with the course of a government proceeding. Wouldn't that be even resisting police? Wouldn't that qualify for that?
No, a government proceeding would be like the Senate confirming like an officer of the executive agency.
You would
like
have to demonstrate that. I don't believe that that's true. I think that you can interfere with government proceedings, even absent there being some actual proceeding that you're interfering with. I think that
if you would like to introduce
localized laws.
That's fine. And if you would like to introduce your own unique definition of insurrection, you can.
Why would I need to do that? We have.
I'm unaware in the historical record of anybody suggesting that interfering with police officers is a matter of insurrection or can lead to an element of insurrection.
Are there laws against rioting?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I know there's laws against like things that happen in rioting. I don't know if there's like a law of rioting.
Are you resisting those laws when you're rioting?
No.
You're not resisting those laws when you're rioting?
No, unless you're literally rioting to say we should make rioting legal or we need to get rid of the prohibition on rioting.
And that is
why would that be a qualification to resist the laws?
Because breaking the law and do you acknowledge that breaking the law and resisting the law are not the same
Well, tell me what the distinction is so I'm not confused anymore.
Breaking the law is when you do something that's illegal, and resisting the law is saying that this particular law shouldn't exist.
Yeah, okay, but if you're rioting, how do you go about resisting a law?
Well, you could riot for the purpose of overturning a particular law. You might say,
but you're resisting other laws then, right?
No, you're not saying that rioting should be made legal.
Yeah, but even if you weren't, you would still be resisting laws that were on the books against rioting.
If I can't divorce, okay, we can just disagree here. If you think that resisting and breaking the law are the same thing, we're at an.
I didn't say that they're the same thing. I said that necessarily, if you're rioting to resist some other external law. So let's say I think that there's
hold on. Do you agree?
I think
do you agree that you can engage
in
in rioting? No. Do you agree that you can engage in rioting and accept that you might get arrested for rioting?
Yeah.
Then that defeats your entire argument. You can engage in rioting without resisting the law of rioting. Understand that, well, I'm going to riot, but I might be arrested
that makes
for it.
my argument. That makes my argument. So the thing is that even if I concede that it's true, that you could be, rioting with the expectation that you get arrested for this X thing, right? You could do this for murder as well. You could do this for basically anything. You could commit any crime with the expectation that you could be arrested for the crime itself. But that would not say that you're not resisting whatever the current laws were that were on the books about that crime. You're saying that the necessity here is that you are resisting some other thing. Fine, but you're also resisting laws by the very nature of rioting. So I don't know why you would have to have something which is externalized while you yourself are still breaking laws. I don't think.
How are you resisting the law? How are you resisting laws of rioting by rioting?
Well,
what does resist mean to you there?
So
How are you defining resist?
Yeah. So assuming, I can give you an example of this. Let us assume for a second that people are rioting in an abortion clinic because they want abortion overturned. I think this is the spirit of your argument, right? So they're rioting in an abortion clinic. They want abortion to be overturned. You would agree with me then that they are pushing against abortion, but they're still breaking laws while they're rioting, right? So they are resisting current laws, even though they're resisting another current law. And I don't think that you would consider that to be an insurrection, even though it could fit all of the criteria of these elements. It's an assemblage, for sure. You're resisting some other law that you don't like, or you're interfering with the course of a government proceeding. You would say that that fits criteria too. You would say that this is by force or intimidation, and you would say it's for a public purpose. But that clearly is not an insurrection, Destiny.
The issue is that like abortion is not like this isn't a federal law. I could just grant you.
He's just moving the goalpost.
Unable or unwilling to differentiate.
Let's assume for a second that it was. Let's assume for a second it was a federal law.
Okay, you know what? Actually, we can do that. Let's say that the federal government passed a law either allowing or not allowing all abortion. Okay, the government either allows it, everybody can have an abortion whenever they want, or nobody can have an abortion. Okay, let's say that I gather a group of people and I say, listen, okay, fuck this abortion law. We're all going to get together and we're going to go protest. Okay, and we're protesting. The goal of our protest, all right, is we want to get rid of the abortion thing, whether it was passed or made illegal. Okay, we want to get rid of this law, and we're going to show up with a whole bunch of fucking people, and shit's going to get rowdy. And we're going to, we know what we're doing. Okay. It's the data in Capitol Hill that they're going to sign the law into whatever. We march down there, and in the course of protesting, like it becomes a riot. And the riot and everything there was because of that particular law being signed into practice. I would say, yeah, that was an insurrection. You've shown up with a group of people. You're resisting the passage of some particular law. You're showing up through force or intimidation. And you end up exercising that. And then it's for the public purpose of a particular law that impacts everybody in the United States. I would say that is an insurrection. Yes. Would you say it's not?
So if
would you say that that's not an insurrection?
Yeah, I would say that it would not be an insurrection, at least by this criteria. That would just seem to me, again, to be a riot. That would seem to fit the criteria, again, of a riot better than an insurrection. I still can't exactly figure out the delineation point, and I'm trying to. And now, to be fair to you, it is nebulous. I understand it's nebulous, but I'm also not the one who's making the affirmative claim. You are. So you're saying that if a bunch of fucking dope smoking hippies wanted to resist the federal law of being able to smoke marijuana on federal land, and they all showed up and they got stoned, and then they started rioting, that would be a fucking insurrection?
If they went there with a common purpose, they were trying to resist the implementation or execution of a particular law. Yeah, theoretically.
Well, no, they're just resisting, right? They're just resisting a law. They're saying, we're here to protest the fact, man, that we can't smoke weed on federal property, man. So they all grab their blunts and they start toking up in protest.
10 seconds.
Right? And then they start a fire.
What do you have?
And kick some stuff. And kick some stuff.
Do you think
hang on, I just want to make sure. You think
it could be, yes.
That would be an insurrection.
The historical record, it could be, yes. Do you have any definition of insurrection whatsoever? Or do you
don't need to give you a counter definition.
If you're not going to give me a counter definition, I can give you the riot definition doesn't include necessarily a public purpose. I've already given examples of riots that wouldn't fit my definition of insurrection, and I really only need to give one, and I automatically win. A riot could very much be in response to a particular sports team winning a game. Boom. That's an example of a riot. It doesn't fit my definition of an insurrection. I've differentiated between the two, and unless you're going to give me any countervailing definition, definitions, I automatically satisfy that
Yeah,
element.
but
of
I
my
already did.
claim,
Or
and then-
interfering with the course of a government proceeding in and of itself. I think that the necessity of rioting in and of itself. What if you blockade a federal highway?
Wait, the necessity of rioting in and of itself. Wait, what?
I think,
No,
yeah,
hold on, wait.
I think that,
To be
that
clear,
rioting,
do you acknowledge?
itself,
Do you
you're breaking
acknowledge that
crimes
I
by
just
rioting.
gave you? Do you acknowledge that I just gave you an example of a riot that wouldn't be an insurrection under my definitions?
So I think that that would even be appropriate. I think that you could give me tons of definitions of riots that would not fit this definition of an insurrection, but
Okay.
that would not mean that this definition doesn't fit the definition of riot better than insurrection. You understand?
Wait, so if somebody was protesting and it got really violent after a sports game, how would my
Mhm.
definition fit that better than insurrection fit that
Well, what
better
if they
than-
were blockading a federal highway? Would that be interfering with the course of government proceedings because there's a federal law that says you can't blockade byways on federal highways? I mean, this is the thing. Is
I
that
don't know.
this-
I don't think that
this
counts
becomes-
as a
this
like a
becomes so
proceeding.
Do you see what I mean? Though this becomes so broad that we can begin.
Oh
to
shit,
just
Jay
add all
Medina,
sorts
what's
of
up,
things
big
and
guy?
call them insurrections.
What is
Do
the
you-
government
so here,
proceeding?
let me give you an example. So if we're going to be totally good faith here, right, which I've been trying to be this entire debate,
Mhm.
and I think you would concede that, if we're going to be really good faith here, do you really believe that if a bunch of hippies showed up to smoke a bunch of dope on federal property, okay, and a few of them got wild and started a fire and kicked some shit, right, and fucking, I don't know, somebody got beat up with a bat because there was tens of thousands of them who showed up for that protest? Do you really believe that that would fit the criteria of what most people think of, including you, as an insurrection?
If they didn't go there united by like a particular public purpose,
The public
if they
purpose
weren't
was
there,
they were going against this federal law. They don't want the federal law. They're resisting that federal
just
law.
so that we don't have to waste more time on this. If you want to stack this enough, all I'm going to end up doing is saying that, like, yes, this would agree as I would agree that this would be an insurrection. You have it. You're not able to demonstrate. This is why I'm asking you, like, historically, can you give me an example of an event that you don't think I would want to classify as an insurrection?
I don't think
that
I
would
need to,
classify
because
as
I
an
think-
insurrection.
so
But if you're
here's-
just going to give me
so
examples, where you're just
don't
going to
need
make
to.
you're
Well,
going to
here,
build
I
these
can
events
give-
more
I'm
and
gonna
more.
give you
and
the
say, would
ultimate
that be an
example
insurrection?
right
I'll say,
now.
like, yeah, I would say that was an insurrection. sure.
Nobody in good faith anywhere is going to agree with you that if a bunch of hippies showed up to resist the marijuana law on federal property, and then a few of them started a riot, that they would consider that insurrection against the United States. I don't believe you believe it. I don't believe your audience believes it. I don't believe anybody believes it. So if that is the case, that it's so broad that that will encapsulate, I'm actually fine leaving the debate there too.
Crushed it.
Okay. I mean, again, it doesn't really matter what we would consider to be an insurrection. The only thing that really matters is what the historical record says is at the time was considered an insurrection.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Again, I
because
literally
nobody's
think
prosecuting anybody for it. So
you don't have to. Well, you're just retreading. Technically, I think this might be a gish gallows when you keep bringing up arguments that have been rebuked over and over and over again.
I don't think it
you
was
can keep
gish
bringing it up
gallows.
over and over and over again. But again, we agree that, like, we can walk in and see, wow, this person was murdered, and go, oh, really? Who was charged with murder? Okay, fuck. Or wow, there sure is a riot here. We saw that a riot happened. Well, who was charged with rioting? Oh, fuck, I guess. Like, you don't need a charge of a particular crime, and the barrier or the bar for charging somebody with a particular crime is probably a lot higher than declaring an event a thing itself. Doesn't make any sense to say because somebody hasn't been charged with a particular thing.
It also doesn't make any sense to say that
we're not
just
talking about
because-
criminal charges.
it also doesn't make any sense that to say that because they haven't been charged with a particular thing, that means they're guilty of the particular thing either. That's the
I'm not-
flaw in that
that's
argument.
my
I pointed it
criteria-
out multiple
My
times.
criteria,
Your criteria
is not.
doesn't
Yeah, you can
actually
keep it-
flow with this correctly.
My criteria is not because they weren't charged. That's why it was an insurrection. I would never use that as part of my criteria. I don't know.
Yeah,
why you
well,
would.
hippies
1 minute,
everywhere
1
don't show
minute,
up to federal
1 minute.
property to protest by smoking weed, and because if a couple of you start a fire, you're going to get brought up on insurrection charges. Said nobody ever. That's insane.
We're not. No, I don't know why we keep bringing up insurrection charges. No one's talking about a criminal charge or a criminal proceeding here. That's
Yeah,
not what's
criminal
that-
charge or criminal proceeding. That would be a charge, right? That's what
Yeah,
bringing up
nobody's
criminal
talking
charges.
about that here. Nobody's talking about criminal charges here or criminal proceedings here.
So but you would still consider that an insurrection, right?
An insurrection doesn't have to be a criminal matter.
I just want to make sure that you would still consider that an insurrection.
seconds.
If all four elements of what I said were met, then
All right,
yes.
fine. Well,
If insurrection's not a criminal matter, then why are you having this fucking debate?
Again, everything else like that. I see that there's obviously a difference of opinion in the definitions of what fits what, etc. So what I'll do is I'll go to closing arguments. I'll put. Are you both okay with 3 minutes on the clock to make your closing argument, or I
Sure.
can make it a little bit longer if you guys want, and then we can close that after that.
yeah, whatever you guys want to do. I'm fine
Destiny, are
with.
you okay with 3, or do you want more?
3's probably fine.
3 minutes? Okay.
Mhm.
Who wants to go first?
Ladies first.
Well, I opened first, so usually person who opens closes last.
Okay. So, Destiny, I'll turn it to you. I'll put 3 minutes on the clock, and you can put your closing arguments here. And this was a fantastic discussion. Obviously, you know you have a good debate when the chat is like, you know, if almost 50-50. So I'll go ahead and turn it to you, Destiny, and you can give us your closing arguments, and then I'll go turn it to Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, historically, like there have been examples of things that were considered insurrections that were incredibly small in nature, right? I don't know if anybody died at all in the Whiskey Rebellion. I'm pretty sure everybody that got arrested for that was like acquitted. It was just people basically essentially protesting the whiskey tax laws. This wasn't a massive deal that had like explosions and gunfire and deaths everywhere. I think that we just don't tend to view things as insurrections as much anymore because we don't tend to have insurrections as much anymore because that's kind of become the new norm as the United States has, you know, traveled through or journeyed through time. I think that the 4 elements that I gave, I think were pretty clearly met on January 6th. I think I've demonstrated that we can imagine a ton of events that are riots that wouldn't fit the 4 elements. I understand that Andrew has a really hard time understanding the difference between resisting a law versus just breaking a law. Just because somebody goes out and they engage in rioting doesn't mean that they are trying to resist the law of rioting, that they're trying to make it so that rioting is legal. That's the goal of that particular riot. Oftentimes, riots can be said to come together to protest other types of things where people feel like the law isn't being executed in a reasonable manner. To say that a bunch of people that show up and end up rioting as a result of a protest that's against, like, say, a cop they feel like wasn't fairly prosecuted is the same as a bunch of people showing up to resist the certification of the vote as laid out in the Electoral Count Act is just not at all the same thing. But we can continue to misread the second element of this, and I understand why, and that's because if you grant the definition or any definition of insurrection, January 6th almost certainly follows from it. And the only way to escape January 6th as being labeled as an insurrection is to use either a ridiculous type of definition that literally nobody historically has ever agreed to. And again, you will never find historical citations, people that use these very unique and contrived definitions of insurrection, or you set the bar of evidence as being unbelievably high, which is saying something like Donald Trump needed to say, hey, everybody, we're going to go do an insurrection. And absent that, even if he's telling people to fight like hell, even if he's tweeting the day before, Vice President Pence has the ability to overturn the election, even if he's saying, like, you know, we need to go down in March and fight like hell and take our country back. None of these things are going to matter if they don't actually use the word insurrection, which I guess means there's no such thing as an insurrection ever having occurred in all of U.S. history. I would say that if you argue with somebody who doesn't believe in a particular definition of insurrection, ask them, has any insurrection ever occurred ever? Which would you consider an insurrection? And then once they start to consider something as an insurrection, say, hey, well, what are the elements that make this an insurrection? Or even more, you could say, historically, what have judges and lawmakers considered an insurrection? People like Andrew will never do that. Instead, they will just play word games all day and try to say, well, riots fit, and what about states and all these other things that aren't really relevant.
That is rich. How he's saying Andrew's playing word games when that's the backbone of his own fucking debate strategy. Their accusations are confessions.
To you, Andrew, to make your closing arguments. And then, Andrew, from what I understand, you wanted to open up the phone lines, right, and have a discussion with the people after?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Even if Destiny has other places to go, I'm willing to stick around for call-ins. I've always done that on the Crucible.
Sure.
I'm
I
sure
will,
there's
right
people.
now as we speak, Bills is firing up the phone line, so we'll get that phone number out and put it on the screen, and you guys
somebody
can,
please
Dusty,
call
if
in
you
and
want
call
to
this
take
a
it to your audience, so
faggot.
we can answer some questions for the people. But I will turn it to you, Andrew, to make your closing arguments. 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, it's really funny, this appeal to authority. Destiny grabs this entire nebulous definition from some guy that he respects on the internet and then claims that this is some authoritative definition. This is the authoritative definition because I read it from some guy on the
Michael
internet.
Martin, you are
okay,
correct.
Great.
Good job,
Even though
Michael.
the courts themselves have not ruled on this, and nobody was charged with insurrection. Nobody was charged. Again, one more time, nobody charged with insurrection. Trump acquitted of inciting an insurrection, which again, nobody was charged with. Talk about nebulous definition. He says, I'm playing word games. Meanwhile, he takes time today, all day, to assemble a 4-point, kind of, this is my definition, completely based on some other guy on the internet, which is crazy to me, right? This is Destiny's personal definition of what this means. And it clearly fits 3 of the criteria for rioting right off the gate. We only had an issue with 2. And then when we apply these, and remember my opening statement, I said in my opening statement, this is going to become very broad, right? There's no way that we're not going to be able to call all sorts of things insurrections that clearly are not insurrections. We come up with the idea of what if a bunch of dope smoking hippies all show up with the united purpose of smoking dope on federal land in order to resist the federal law. And then a couple of them start a fire and one gets beaten up with a baseball bat or something like this. Suddenly that's an insurrection. Clearly, nobody would think that that was an insurrection. Clearly, nobody would think that. That's a completely unreasonable standard. right? But it's the Destiny standard. And the reason, again, that he had to have such a broad definition, the reason that he needed this, and he needed me to come in and give him some definition he could do an internal critique on, is because his idea that this was an insurrection is only there specifically to villainize the opposition for the purposes of demonization, so that when bad things happen to them, he can call them traitors. That's it. That's the whole game. It's been his whole game now for a while. And this is what got him on Pierce and all these other things, which I recently reviewed, was that take. And so in order for him to justify that take, he has to make you a traitor because you don't believe that that was an insurrection that nobody was charged with.
Bingo. Crushed.
Okay. 2:15.
Crushed.
Guys, that was a fucking fantastic discussion.
Crushed.
You know, obviously, people
Crushed.
are going to have different viewpoints
That's
on
just
where they go,
such
but
so
that's, I
much
think, the
dick
beauty
and
of
I
any
go for
discussion like
this.
this in debate. That you know, good debate always has people with different viewpoints saying like, "Oh, I think this guy did better. I think this guy did better." So great discussion from both. I am going to open up the phone lines right now. I think the number is going to be Block Talk, Bills.
Yeah.
So, guys, the number is going to be 515-605-9740.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah, I still remember. Yeah. Yeah. So that is going to be the phone number, guys, to
John
call
and
into the show.
Denang,
You
welcome
can
back.
interact
I
with
missed
us,
you. I missed you so
whether
much.
it's me,
I
Destiny,
need you in my life.
Your show
You're a
now,
crucial
press
component
1
of my
to hear.
happiness.
Your show is
Love you so
scheduled
much.
to
I love
start
all you
in
guys for watching and supporting me.
33
Seriously, love you
seconds.
all.
And you just and Andrew, how do you normally run this? You 515-605-9740. That's the number to call in, guys. Again, that number is
just who usually just whoever calls in, they have a single question. They answer the question and then move on to the next caller. Maybe like 30
Somebody
seconds.
call in and say, Destiny, why are you such a faggot?
Many callers as possible.
Yeah.
Usually that's how I do it.
okay. No, that's cool because we're gonna.
Your
have
show will
a
go
bunch of
live
people
in
call
5
again.
seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Okay, so guys, the number to call in is 515-605-9740. Again, that number is 515-605-9740. We're manning the phone lines here at Fresh and Fit. So if you call in, if you super chat, we'll go ahead and put you at the top of the list, get you in there faster. As usual, super chat with the last 4 digits of your number. And I think we just opened up the lines. Okay, so do we have anyone on now? I know we literally just opened them, but
Yeah, we do.
okay, so as usual, guys, normal rules. If you want to skip the line, super chat the last 4 digits of your numbers in, and we will go ahead and get you on the line. Let's go ahead and hit the first caller here.
We got 6327. You're up. 6327. You are up.
Go ahead, 6327. And I'm going to be hosting a Zoom call after this, guys. Andrew, if you don't mind, drop it in on Castle Club after this.
Of course.
Awesome.
At
Thank you
your
so much.
service. Thank you so much for hosting this
Of
and
course.
you guys coming in on your day
And
off.
Destiny,
is
you're
very
welcome
kind of
too
you.
if you want to jump in and talk to my.
Hey, you guys ready for me?
But yeah, go ahead. But we'll do calls for a bit, and then we'll switch on over to Castle Club. And I appreciate you guys doing that for me. If you guys want to, thank you, Andrew. And if you want to come in, Destiny, awesome. We got someone on the line, right?
Yeah.
Okay, brother. Tell us your name, where you're from, and hit us with your question.
My name's Rick from Miami, Florida. The question is for Andrew. Very frustrating on his side to see the debate on his side. So I really do need an answer of what his definition is for an insurrection.
Are you asking me my definition?
Andrews. I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you one. It's not my burden.
I feel like that's a cop out. Okay, so that's all.
No, well,
that's
then you
my
need to
only
learn how to
question.
debate because you not knowing how to debate doesn't mean that I'm copping out. It's not my position. The affirmative position, the person calling people insurrectionists is not me.
Wait, how are we supposed to have a
honestly
debate on if
feel
January
that's
6th is an
that's
insurrection if you don't
arguing
even
in
have a
bad faith,
definition of
honestly,
insurrection?
Why do I need to have a
Destiny came in
definition
here with
to
an
note that
actual
whatever definition that
definition
you
that
could
he
come
felt
up
what an
with would be
insurrection
too
was.
broad
I
to
feel
apply
like
to
you're
this? That's not
arguing
a
in bad
logical
faith.
Hold on one
statement.
second,
either,
guys.
Destiny.
Hold on one
No,
second. Hold on one sec.
So you
wait, hold on.
came in with some facts. He came in with some points, but you didn't.
Okay. Andrew, do you want to respond to him on that, or you
Wait,
want to?
I think we missed like.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We were having an exchange. I missed the actual
Okay.
question.
And I think his main criticism is he wants to know what your definition of insurrection is. Is that correct, caller?
Correct.
Yeah, it's
I
not.
feel
It's
like
not.
Destiny
It's not
has
my
made a
burden.
point on
so.
on his definition of an insurrection.
It's not
and Andrew
my
is finding every
burden.
which way to not answer that kind of a definition of question, and he's using the words "it's not my burden" to cop out of that definition question.
Okay,
I really
why?
want to
How is
know
it
what
my
he
burden?
feels an insurrection is.
So let me ask you. Let me ask you a question, caller.
This guy calling in gets no women. You can tell he's overweight by the sound of his voice, and he's definitely a Destiny fan, and he's just coping hard right now.
Could I logically give you a criticism for why that actually would fit something else that I do know what it is better than the idea of murder? Do you understand that, caller?
Yes.
Well, then what is your
I think
criticism?
what you're asking me is, I think what you're asking me is if something that you think fits another definition, would you be able to apply to that definition? And you could. However,
No, that's not what I'm asking
you're not
you.
providing an actual argument to that. Like all you're saying is, well, this could fit something else, but you're not saying.
No,
why.
I'm giving what's
You're
called
not
an
saying
internal
how.
critique. An internal critique doesn't necessitate an argument.
Hold on,
So
this doesn't
you
make sense.
can
The
give
if
an
the,
internal criticism.
if the debate has
Go
to do
ahead,
with
Leslie.
whether or not a person was murdered, if that's the debate, was John murdered, and the entire debate is just you critiquing another person's definition of murder, but you're unwilling to put forth your own definition of murder, the implication is that you were never prepared to debate the actual topic of the debate, which is if
That's not
somebody
the
was murdered.
implication. That doesn't even make any sense. So, Destiny, let me ask you a counter
And
question.
my argument
Look-
is that is arguing in bad faith.
That's
Okay,
not only
thank
is
you.
that not arguing in bad faith, it's arguing in the best faith.
Their accusations are confessions.
Caller, let Andrew
Not
address
me.
Destiny's thing. Next call. Let's get the next caller on.
Oh no, wait, quick, hold on,
Wait,
because this has to be
okay.
answered. Hold on. How could you possibly deal with the topic if you don't have a definition of insurrection?
Well, let's try. I was just getting to that. So let me ask you, Destiny. Let us assume for a second that you weren't sure exactly what murder meant. You weren't exactly sure what the criteria was. Another person was calling this group of people a murderer, right? You had kind of an idea maybe of what that was. And so you went to them and you said, okay, can you tell me what you mean by murder? And they gave you some other criteria that fit way better with something other than their definition of murder. Why would that be illogical or in any way unreasonable?
That's not illogical and that's not unreasonable, but that would only mean that you would be successful if the debate is Destiny's definition of insurrection satisfactory insofar as defining January 6th as an insurrection. But that wasn't the debate
As
topic.
long
It
as it
wasn't
fits-
just my definition of
Yeah,
insurrection.
it
The debate
was.
was, okay, wait. So how can do you agree that the prompt of the debate was January 6th an insurrection?
Yeah, why does that mean that I have
How
to?
can you answer that? Wait, do you not have to
Yes.
answer the prompt to a debate?
Yeah, so I'm not taking that. I'm neutral on it. It could have been. I was willing to concede
Oh, you have
that-
no position?
I was willing to concede that it could have been. I said right in my opening, in good faith, I'll make concessions based under A, B, and C criteria if he can make these demonstrations. You never did.
Okay, so then just to be clear then, just so we're all, so the prompt for the debate was January 6th an insurrection? And I came in with a positive and you came in with no position.
No, it wasn't no position. It was that it's possible that it was,
That's how I
possible
see
that
it.
it wasn't.
That's no
And
position.
I was willing to hear you. No, it's a neutral position. That's not no position.
That's no
Neutral is
position.
a
If
position.
somebody's looking, okay.
I'm sorry, is neutral not a position?
Not really, no.
Oh, no, not really. Does that mean no or yes, Destiny? Is neutral a position
It's
or
a
isn't
poor
it?
faith
For the
decision.
purposes of having a debate, no.
Oh, for the purposes of having a debate, you can't have a neutral position. Destiny,
If somebody
Stephen
hosted a
Bonnell
debate-
III, the best leftist debater on planet
Yeah.
Earth, ladies and gentlemen, neutral on a debate topic is
Yep.
not a position.
Not to have as a debater. That's correct. If there's a debate saying,
To be honest
is
with
God
you,
real?
the
And one person
fourth
shows up and says,
position is
I'm
not
arguing
a
the
very
affirmative, God is
entertaining
real. And the other person
position.
says, I'm a neutral position on that.
Oh, I guess you've never debated with an agnostic before who's neutral. They're neutral
Not
on
in a
it.
debate on what, that would be a debate on agnosticism or Gnosticism.
No, it
not a
wouldn't. It could
debate
be a
on whether
debate
or not
on if God is
or
real.
not real.
Why couldn't you go into a debate agnostic about God being real or not real, Destiny? Can you explain that real quick? I'd
Because
love to hear it.
definitionally, an agnostic doesn't take a
Caller, thank you
position
for calling
on or
in.
doesn't think they can have knowledge
They
of
do take a
of
position.
God.
They take a
They
neutral
don't have a
position.
knowledge of God. So why would you debate a Gnostic person or somebody,
That
an
makes-
agnostic person,
that
or
makes
somebody
no
on
sense.
Gnosticism who doesn't have a position on these?
Oh,
God
so
exists or not?
agnostics can't have a neutral position about whether or not God exists or not.
You wouldn't
according to
listen
Stephen
to a
Bonnell
debate
III.
somebody, a person who's agnostic, you wouldn't listen to the debate on whether or not God is real or not. They would say, oh, well, I can't have information about the existence of God. And you go, okay, well, I guess you wouldn't have
Oh,
this
well, then I
debate.
guess 50% of the debates on modern day debate are incorrect because people have a neutral position, an agnostic position, like Matt Dillahunty, a guy you talked to about whether or not God is real, where Matt Dillahunty says, listen, I'm agnostic on it. He could be real. You just haven't demonstrated to me that he's real. Matt Dillahunty's wrong in all of those debates, right, Destiny?
He would be if that was the prompt of the debate. Yes, if the prompt of the debate was, is God real or not real?
I'm doing
and
the
you come in
triangle.
and you go,
I'm doing the
oh,
triangle.
you come in and you go, oh, well, I'm agnostic. Then you go, okay, well, why the fuck are you in this debate? You don't have a position on it. Then bring in somebody that feels an atheist who wants to have a strong position of like he's not real, and then a theist who has a strong position. He is.
That makes no sense. You can still have a neutral position. That's absurd. I don't know how in the world are you the world's best leftist debater if you don't know you can take a neutral position.
This is like saying you want to have a debate between two people between who is God or what is God, and one person is Catholic and the other person is an atheist. It's a nonsense position. Everybody knows this. This is like a debate.
Oh,
game.
everybody knows it, so
This
it's
is a
true.
debate game. Yeah.
Just like everybody knows it's an insurrection, even though they can't charge
I
anybody.
didn't
with an
say everybody knows
insurrection,
it's an insurrection. I said the historical record says it's an insurrection.
right? Uh-huh.
Okay. So what I'll do here is we'll move to the next caller here.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's Mo, you got it up?
5584, you're up. 5584, you're up.
All right. Welcome to the show, 5584. You got Myron Gaines, Destiny, and Andrew Wilson in the house. Hit us with your question, please, quickly, because we got a lot of people on the line. Holy shit.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, bro. You're on air.
You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, man. You're on air.
Oh, hello. Oh, damn. Oh, never. So, I just wanted to ask, do I have to solely debate on this topic alone, or can I just talk about other topics as well?
You want to keep a topic specific,
Yeah, just on
please.
this alone. Yeah,
Yeah,
because otherwise
let's
people
try-
are going to be calling up for every damn.
This is hoping. I mean, neither of them actually gave a definition. Neither of them gave a definition on the topic at all. Like, Destiny, what was your definition of insurrection?
An insurrection has four crucial elements. One is that there's an assembly of people for a common purpose. Two is that you're resisting a particular law or you're interfering with the course of government proceeding. Three is that you're doing this by way of force or intimidation. And then four is you're doing it for a public purpose, not like a private one. You're not showing up to like steal something, or you're not showing up because you're like upset about like how a sporting event turned out. It's like a public interest in it.
Damn.
Yeah,
And I
caller,
agree
he
with
said
you,
that at
man.
the top
That
of
means
his
that
argument, bro.
January 6th wasn't insurrection.
Caller, he said that at the top of his argument, dude, and he was referencing the 14th Amendment. You might have missed it.
No, I'm just saying. No, I agree with him that it wasn't insurrection, but wasn't Andrew's whole point that January 6th was not an insurrection? I believe that was his whole point.
Well, Andrew doesn't have a point because he rejects my definition of insurrection, and then he appeals to some universal definition of riot, which I'm not even sure he's given. And then he appeals to, well, this is what everybody would think a riot is. And then he appeals to, well, nobody would agree that hippie people engaged in your definition of insurrection are committing an insurrection. So I guess Andrew's just agnostic on the question of whether or not J6 was an insurrection because he doesn't have a definition of what an insurrection is.
Okay, but I think you answered his question, Destiny, so we can move on to the next guy.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you for calling in. We're going to move on to the next caller again, guys. 515-605-9740. Shout out to Mo and Bills manning the phone lines in the back. If you super chat in the last four digits of your number, fnfsuperchat.com, we will go ahead and rumble right, whatever you want to do. We're live on all the platforms. We will get you to the top of the list. Last four digits of your number. Who's up next?
4086, you're up. 4086.
Go ahead, 4086. Shout out to the production team in the back, man, making this fucking flawless. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, so I got a question for Andrew. Just it's not. I'm not trying to debate on it. It's just a question. I'm just trying to gauge what you think about this. So, Andrew, if there was like a leader or whatever per se of the country or whatever, right? Like, and you genuinely wholeheartedly believe that this leader was like an evil person or whatever, and they're gonna bring rain and terror to your country or whatever, do you think it's morally justified to take him out before he causes some harm?
That's really context specific. So possibly,
what do you believe that this leader is like the next Hitler or whatever? You generally thought that. Do you think it's like okay to like kind of take over or stop them from?
Again, that claim is really listen. That claim is really context specific. I'm going to tell you it's possible, yes, but I'm not sure because it would be under some type of, again, it's like a nebulous concept, the context behind this. So I'm not sure. Maybe it could be, there's a possibility, but that doesn't mean yes or no. I'm not sure. I would need context for this.
Okay, so I mean, just take the Trump shooting, for example.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. So I mean, like, suppose that guy that did it or whatever legitimately thought that like Trump was going to be the next Hitler. Do you think he was in the like almost a moral right or whatever to try to take him out?
No.
Okay. Why?
Well, so we're not allowed.
Uh-oh,
to,
retard
in this
alert!
nation, assassinate our political opposition.
These people calling in are fucking morons. There's no hope if you don't work on yourself. That's your competition, guys. If you're listening to these people like, wow, these people are fucking stupid, and you're like, can see that? There's hope for you. You can turn your life around.
And kill people.
Okay, so that's fine. So let's just take away murder.
Just to be clear, I don't think assassinations are allowed in any country. I think they're usually not okay. But
Okay, hold on. I just want to add, do you think it's okay to just stop them? Just stop them from taking office? Like just like physically force and prevent them from taking office?
I mean, I'm trying to follow this. Maybe it could be, but what do you mean? You mean is it okay to physically stop Trump from taking
like if
office?
a bunch of people pulled up and just like forcibly, physically, we're say like we're not going to allow you to be president because we think you're going to be awful. Do you think it's okay to do that?
Yeah, that would be criminal. Yeah, you can't do that. No.
Okay.
All right.
That's it. Thank you.
No problem, man. We'll move on to the next caller. Again, 515-605-9740. Super chat, last 4 digits of your number to cut the line. Go ahead, Mo.
3990. You're up.
Go ahead, 3990.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Andrew, I have a question. Can you define me a chair?
Do you want? Well, it depends on. This is like the sandwich argument, right? So, what is a sandwich? What is a chair? This kind of thing. So, when you look at the essence of a thing, right? It is possible that all definitions could fall short to an essence of a thing, but that doesn't mean we can't recognize the essence of a thing. Which is why, if we were to take the idea of
is that a dude walking around the background of
Epstein's
apartment? What was that?
In a forest somewhere to resist federal.
Hold on, I guess who was that? That's a dude. Is that his boyfriend? You guys cannot see it. Hold on. Let me remove the QR code. Who is that guy? He looks like a Destiny supporter.
We can't recognize the essence here, which you can't pick apart. Likely not.
But isn't that what you're doing right now?
No, it's not what I'm doing right now.
Karpal, go back to 7-Eleven.
Because there's still an essence to the thing. There's still something which we're perceiving to the thing, which makes it a chair. The same way it makes it an insurrection. So if it fits the criterion of a riot better, and when we see it as a riot, and everybody sees it as a riot more than they do an insurrection, which is why it was charged that way, it seems like it falls under riot better.
Who's charged for a riot?
Well, they're charged under the purview of rioting. And
I thought they were charged for like trespassing and stuff.
Yeah, well, trespassing as well. So these are
not a riot, though.
Well, these are going to be tangential laws. And again,
what is a tangential law? What does that mean?
So if let's say for a second that you're arrested for I don't know, for trespassing, right? Certainly that's not going to fit the definition of an insurrection, right?
Wait, is there a federal crime? Is there a federal crime for rioting?
Well, maybe not, but it would be under purview of what rioting is.
I don't know what that means. Purview of what rioting is when we talk about criminal charges. I don't know what that means.
Okay, well, you agree with me? There is rioting.
I don't know if rioting is a public or is a federal crime. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I get that. But do you agree with me? There is rioting.
I agree that riots exist. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you agree that you and I could likely agree on what a riot is?
I don't know. You don't want to give definitions for anything.
Well, I mean, if I gave you examples, do you think we could agree? Like, if I showed BLM footage of their riots, do you think that you would agree that those were riots?
No, I would ask you very specifically: was anybody charged with a riot? And if they were,
how retarded is Destiny to not know that rioting is a crime? Why the fuck do you think the police have a dedicated unit called riot control, where they gear up with pepper spray, tasers, visors, protective masks, protective helmets, and shields and batons to go beat people into submission? Because it's completely legal. That's why they allocated all these finances to it. Like, fake and gay.
Or whatever an insurrection is going to be. And so we have to untangle this idea. And then we move on to idea 2, which is your definition may fit something else better than it fits actual insurrection.
Okay. Then you'd have to show me for a particular BLM riot that somebody was charged with the crime of rioting. And if they weren't charged with that, they were charged with something else, I'd say, oh, people probably didn't think it was a riot. They just felt like a couple people.
For me how this was actually an insurrection.
I already hit. I laid out 4 necessary elements, the
Yeah.
things that wouldn't encompass a riot.
Okay, well, I would say that CHAZ and CHOP was like a open rebellion or insurrection. Would
Okay.
that would
and then
that
I
be
would
a fair
ask you,
demonstration?
I would ask you, no, because I would ask you for a single historical example, either judicially, legally, or through any kind of like historical writing, where they say that you can engage in an insurrection against a state. I'm not aware of that being possible. I don't think insurrections are defined for states. But if you can show me an example, then I say, oh, okay, fine. Then CHAZ was an insurrection.
Yeah, okay, but the definition it's
You left America. You can't speak. Sorry, I don't understand middle class. Can you transfer that? Like, use your translating app on your ghetto ass Android phone and translate that to multimillionaire, and then I can comprehend your level of stupidity. But as of right now, can't really get on the same page as you, you fucking peasant.
Sure.
I mean, it's a good thing that Andrew doesn't think there are no riots during the BLM protest because no one got convicted. So that's a good takeaway, I guess. But thank you, guys. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move to the next caller. So,
Adam
guys, I
Kirk,
just
thank you so
discussed with my
much.
team how
Adam
we do
Kirk
it.
says MLD pays United States taxes, dum dum. Yeah, I pay more in taxes than you earn every fucking year. I assure you, I guarantee fucking to you, I pay more in taxes than you earn. So I have to give money to the government to facilitate welfare programs and shit for losers like you. Oh, yeah, there we go. Saint in the Sitter blasted you for being a red pill dweeb. You know, he set me up for an unfair interview, but that's okay because he's in his studio, the multimillionaire, with fucking cockroaches crawling all over him in the middle of his crack-infested studio over there in Las Vegas. Yeah, sounds good. A multimillionaire launching an NFT and rugging it onto people. That's what multimillionaires do? No, I'll tell you because I am a multimillionaire. Okay, and that's not what we do, child. But keep on getting scammed. That's adorable.
Go on so we get more people through. You guys want to say
however you want to do it, bro.
Okay, because I know you normally do this on your thing, so I want to try to make it.
That would be better is have the caller say what they say and then disconnect them. Otherwise, it's like a back and forth that could last forever.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do that then.
So
So
thanks there,
caller,
Pookie.
go
Go tell
ahead,
Ray
say your
the
name, where you're
welfare
from,
checks are coming.
ask your question, and then we'll
Because of me.
have them respond to your question and move on. Get as many people through.
1143. Go ahead.
Go ahead, brother.
All right, I'll remain unnamed, but I just want to point out that the particular government proceedings that BLM as a movement was interfering with were the various court cases related to police brutality. So,
okay,
in
so
that
that's
case,
more of a comment.
does BLM meet the criteria of an insurrection?
You wouldn't. I wouldn't define like an entirety of a summer
of
protests or riots or insurrections.
Of course
as
you
like a
wouldn't.
particular insurrection.
Burn those cities down. That's right. Nothing better to really fix the tarnished reputation of black people in America than by burning cities to the ground, burning black-owned businesses to the ground, looting, rioting, destroying everything, robbing stores. That's the remedy. It's fucking phenomenal. I'm just so glad we cleared that up.
With intimidation that the government bend to what they wanted the outcome to be. How does this not make BLM an insurrection? Not an insurrection.
If you can, you might. My guess is going to be that if we went through every single like BLM riot, that we could probably find some that I would say might meet my definition. If we ignore the state-federal distinction, we might find some that meet my definition of insurrection.
And that Trump is a bad president because he led an insurrection, then Kamala Harris directly provided aid and support to insurrectionists. So wouldn't this also make Kamala Harris an insurrectionist?
No, because I don't think any court has reviewed any of that behavior and found any of it to be an insurrection, number one. And number two, I don't believe that providing bail money is considered part of aiding and abetting.
Whoa. No court has said that this is an insurrection either.
That's not true. The Colorado State Supreme Court did.
Why wasn't anybody charged then, Destiny, with insurrection?
Because it wasn't reviewing, because the court wasn't reviewing it for a criminal proceeding. It was the Colorado State Supreme Court. They don't have the authority or jurisdiction to hear.
And what has the Supreme Court said?
The Supreme Court said that they didn't really want to deal with it, so they basically axed it.
So they threw it out because there's no legal context.
Definition. Under your definition, he's meeting the criteria for these being insurrections because he's saying that this is now federal, that these are impeding and resisting federal laws at this point. And so if that is the case,
no one is
you would have to
resisting
concede
the federal laws. That's just, you haven't demonstrated that. The federal execution of what law?
Well, wait a second. Weren't they resisting the federal laws of how police are able to deal with suspects and things like this?
Nice one. Adam
they?
writes, "Where wild? What is your definition? Whatever the courts think." Yeah, the totally non-biased, non-weaponized courts right now. Right, solid use of our tax dollars. Just like me sending welfare payments to Pookie over here.
Particular court outcomes. That's the judicial system, not the legislative system. So I understand that government is confusing, but these are two totally different things. I don't know if you can have an insurrection protesting court decisions. I'm not aware of that ever being the case. If you can engage in insurrection or rebellion against a court decision, I'm not aware of that.
All right. We will go on to the next caller. Who's up next? And we'll take a few more of these guys. Then I'm going to drop a link in Castle Club for Castle Club members to come in and ask these questions.
7579, you are up. 7579, you are up.
Go ahead, brother.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all hear me?
Got you.
Hey, I got a question for Destiny, and I think Andrew can pick up afterwards. So based off of your 4 points that you gave for what would make an insurrection, technically, none of your points make it necessary for there to be violence. You say in point 3, force or intimidation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be violence. So based off of that, wouldn't any legal protest where you're advocating for a certain political cause or anything like that in a public space, wouldn't that also, by your definition, count as an insurrection?
No, because I think that the intimidation part is important. The quote that I borrowed from here was from Justice Marshall in 1807. He said, quote, "The most comprehensive definition of levying war against the king or against the United States, which I have seen, requires an assemblage of men ready to act and with an intent to do some treasonable act and armed in warlike manner, or else assembled in such numbers as to supersede the necessity of arms." So I don't think you necessarily have to engage in violence, but I think that having the people there with the purpose of like intimidation and being ready to act with violence, I think is easily enough to satisfy.
No justice, no justice, no peace.
You
would
you would have to point to like you would have to point to a particular thing. That,
Yeah,
like,
I'll point to CHAZ Chop. So do you think that if you were to take over a big portion or even a small, tiny portion of a state,
You're
and
back.
consider it to now be neutral from the United
Catch
States itself?
me up.
that
I'll be
becomes
back
a
in less than
federal
2 minutes.
I don't know. Is that what was it considered a federal matter?
Well, don't you think that that is resisting federal law? If you make the claim we are seceding this area from the United States, how would that not be federal?
Were they seceding it from the United States, or
That's
were
what
they
they
seceding
claimed.
it, or were they seceding it from Washington or whatever?
What?
Were they seceding from the United States of America, or were they seceding
Yes.
from like the state?
They
or the
said that
city?
this is a
So
neutral
they no
zone. We
longer
are
accepted
seceding.
USD. They no longer employed or recognized.
I'm not
like,
sure that
interstate
even if you were
travel
to have a succession or a secession, that would mean you couldn't accept USD anymore.
Okay,
Like,
I don't know enough.
Why would that matter?
Because it seems like if you're going to secede from a country, it feels like part of that would be like establishing your own government, establishing your own like foreign
Yeah,
relations.
but you
and
can still have USD, and they were trying to do that. They had their own armed militant group who was there armed, definitely intimidating, refused to allow people to come in and out of the zone. They were trying to start their own economy, their own gardens. They had annexed the buildings which were around them. That definitely seems like they're resisting federal law. You're not allowed to secede in the United States. That's a big no-no.
I don't remember this being. Can you tell me what statements or what they made? I don't know the details of this. What did they make, or what statements did they make about federal secession?
Yeah, so CHAZ Chop, they considered it the neutral zone. There was multiple statements made that this is no longer part of the United States.
By who?
We are taking this over, just by the people who were there.
By the people. So if a random person says a particular thing, that because I thought you said earlier that
Well, I mean, if a random person takes a baseball bat to someone, you call it a secession.
You said earlier that we couldn't read intent into the Donald Trump crowd, despite the fact that people were hanging signs saying 7076, hang Mike Pence, and the statements that Trump had made. But I can
yeah, but you say such an inference is fine. So this is
I didn't. I said the inference is fine because of
wait
the
a second.
collection of
This is
statements
the
that Donald
same
Trump had
as an
made, collecting the
internal-
people there for a given
Bro,
purpose
that
that they
makes no
actually
sense.
managed to succeed in doing. It makes perfect sense. I can
Just
lay it
be
out for
talking
perfect
over
if you
me
want.
before I can make the point doesn't help your point. No, it actually doesn't make any sense. Because your claim is that you can read into the hearts and minds of these people based on what you perceive their actions to be. It's like, okay, fair enough. So if the people who are there are doing the exact same thing, they're saying, okay, this is now a neutral zone. We're seceding from the United States of America. Why can't we read that into their actions as well, Destiny? It makes no sense.
I would absolutely do that if but I don't know of any statement like that. And you can't name a single one. So I don't know what I'm supposed to go. I don't know what I can work off.
If CHAZ Chop, if there was such a statement, let's just assume that there was for a second, would you then consider that to be an insurrection?
If they said that we are going to secede from the United States of America, and they had like some organized violent wave and all the other elements from it, then I'd say, yeah, this would count as an insurrection.
Okay.
Easy, sure, easily, of course.
Gotcha.
All right.
But you wouldn't say the same for January 6th, so because you haven't even given a definition of insurrection, but that's the difference between good faith and bad faith. By the way.
No. That's not bad faith for me to do an internal critique in your definition when I can at least take your definition and say, wait a second, all of these apply to a different category. And
Yeah,
that
but
was
you're
established
critiquing-
very well.
You're critiquing my definition without even having a definition.
I
of your
don't need
own.
to have a definition
You
to
do.
critique yours. That's absurd.
You can't.
That's
no,
illogical and
but
absurd.
The debate. Stop using illogical. It doesn't mean anything. You're abusing the word. Okay. The debate
is
was
it? Well, what
whether
does it
or
mean?
not. The debate was over whether or not January 6th was an insurrection. If you only came to that debate to critique my position, and I shouldn't even let you get away with this. You said earlier that you were neutral on it. You're not neutral on it. The answer for you is you can't compute the question. It's undefined. You don't have a neutral position. If you don't have a definition of insurrection, you can't possibly take a position. It's like dividing by zero. The answer is not neutral or nothing.
Again,
you just have an undefined
well,
position.
I know
on it
you
because
don't
don't even
like
have a
this.
definition of a term.
Yeah, I know you hate this, but
that is true.
That
I
is
don't like arguing that the person
illogical.
doesn't have-
That's
Yeah.
actually an illogical statement to say. That I would need to have a definition of anything to critique your definition of it if I have something else that I can make a comparison to that fits with better, that you agree it fits better in. I don't
can
know
I
why
ask
you don't get that.
Okay, what would your position be on if I were to ask you, is January 6th?
What the fuck? Are you okay?
What's your answer to that? Is January?
Did you just go blah, 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 blah?
Yeah. If it's
Why?
ask you, was January
What
6th
the
a?
fuck?
What's your answer to that? Would you say you're neutral on that?
Why? That would be incoherent. I wouldn't even understand.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. Yes. Insurrection, that term is incoherent to you because you have no definition for the word. So I'm uttering nothing to you. When I say insurrection, you have no way to compute the question. So you can't say that you're neutral on it. The same way you can't say you're neutral on it being
Well, I don't know. I don't know how fucking
because you have no
Oh, I don't know
definition
how
for
language
insurrection.
works then when you say, okay,
Apparently not.
This is a Snicker bar. And I don't know what a Snicker bar is, but I can't make comparisons to other things so that I can at least understand where you're coming from with what a Snicker bar is. Okay, Destiny.
That's correct. That is correct.
Yeah, that's
what if I showed
absurd.
you a bar and you're like, that's not a Snicker bar. That looks like a chocolate wafery thing with caramel on it.
Yeah,
And
if
I
it
go,
fit the
yeah, that's a
cri-
Snicker
yeah,
bar.
that's
Yes,
right. Isn't
and you
that
go, no,
great how that works?
actually,
If
this
things
fits
fit
way
other
better
criteria
with
better?
with a Milky Way. That's actually way more like a Milky Way. No, it's not quite a Milky Way. It's a Snicker bar. And you're like, well, I don't even.
Well,
have
then it would fit that criteria of a Snickers bar, the ontology of a Snickers
You wouldn't
bar,
know.
better
You don't
than
have
the
an ontology
of a Milky
Snickers
Way.
bar. You don't have that ontology is not existent for you because it's undefined. You have no definition of what a Snickers bar even is.
You don't need to have a definition
You need
for
to have
you
a
to
definition
understand
of
an
a thing.
ontology of a new concept. What are you talking about? That's crazy.
We're arguing over whether a thing is a thing, whether A is B, and for you, B is
This is why debates are gay. I did this to cover it, just to show you guys like this fucking like these people, namely Destiny, they argue in bad faith. They really don't have a logical position, and they are permanently attached to the government's dick via their mouth.
Couldn't understand if you came up with a term for insurrection. I said, well, fit this other criteria better, why it is that you couldn't concede that that was true. That's this absurd logic. And yes, Destiny's illogical.
Okay, we can move to the next caller. I'll take a few more of these that we're gonna Council Club guys. I'm going to send you guys a link on Council Club where you can join in and be the people that ask these guys the questions. And it'll be and don't worry, we won't have your face on camera because we're streaming on all the platforms. So we're going to protect your identity. If you want to be on camera, maybe we'll do that. But in general, you will just have your voice play. Who's up next?
And whoever is 7983, I see you donated, but you're not in the phone line. So,
Okay, 7893, get in there. Who's up next behind him?
1753, you're up.
1753, you're on the air with Destiny, Myron, and Andrew. Go ahead.
1753.
There you go. What's up, brother?
Yes, sir. Hello. How are you guys doing?
Good, man. What's your question for the panel?
Quick question. It's tangentially related, but Andrew, why do you think Trump didn't call anybody during the riot? Like there were 3 hours. Cops had their shit kicked out of them. He didn't call anybody except for his lawyer and stuff. But like Nancy Pelosi, that's usually the defense. She was the high queen of all Capitol security. Why didn't Trump call Nancy Pelosi?
It's not within. This is not within the purview of the. This is not within the purview of the debate. I don't care about your diatribe. I don't care about your emotional state. This is not within the purview of the debate.
All right. Next up, 8438. You're up. 48438. You are up.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Go ahead, brother.
I appreciate you having me. I had a quick question for Destiny. It sounded like at the end of the debate, toward the end, he conceded to Andrew's example of the hippie rebellion and hippie insurrection. If that's the case, then wouldn't you also have to say that the
Destiny's going to disagree.
The inauguration for Trump in 2017, the overturning of Roe v. Wade at the Supreme Court, and the I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nobody say anything?
We're just listening, caller.
Yeah, just listening to you, bro. Go ahead.
Wouldn't you have to say that those two events, and then of course you have the White House bombing after the George Floyd death with Trump and everything? Wouldn't you have to say that those would fall within the same definition as well?
I would have to go through the facts of each of these, but if you can show me that there was an assembly of people that united for a common purpose, that they were there to contravene some type of federal law, that the resistance's goal was to make use of force or intimidation, and that they were there for something that was like in the public interest, then whatever you're going to give me here, I'm going to say, well, yeah, if it's my definition of insurrection, then I would say these were probably insurrections. Sure.
All right, thanks.
Also, wait, hold on. Real quick. Not only would I say that, you should say that too. Let's say, for instance, let's say that when Roe v. Wade changed or whatever, let's say the federal government was going to do a particular thing. They were gathering to, let's just say they were doing a ban on it. Let's say that you had, let's say that Kamala Harris was marching with these people, chanting and cheering them on and saying like, we're going to stop the government from banning abortion, okay? They're going to sign this law today. We're not going to let them do it. We're going to make our voice here. We're going to go and fight like hell. We're going to do what we need to do to make them not pass this law. They show up when it's going to be signed. She's outside cheering them on as they break into the Capitol building. They go in. When we talk about whether an insurrection is occurring or not, right? And we talk about the 14th Amendment, you shouldn't want her to be president again. You should say, hey, you took an oath to the Constitution, and now you're engaging in insurrectionist behavior. You're violating your oath to the Constitution. I don't want you running for office again. We should all think that. I would think that all of us should have that feeling that if somebody has engaged in or aided in helping people engage in insurrection, then you shouldn't want this person who was in office to run for office again, I would say.
All right, we'll move on to the next caller. And guys, just so you know, we're going to drop the Council Club link, the Zoom call link in Council Club right now. So get in there and then raise your hand in the Zoom call, and we'll answer one or two more calls, and we'll go over to the Council Club guys only. But we're going to drop the link right now. Council Club guys, go ahead and join councilclub.tv. You know how to support free speech on our side. And but we'll take a few more callers while we get that set up on our Zoom side. Who's up next, Mo?
4849.
Okay, 4849.
4849.
You're on there with Destiny Myron and Andrew. What is your question, brother?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, welcome to the show.
All right, cool. So this whole debate was over a definition of was this event the thing of insurrection? So if you were to pick something like, we'll say there's a shape, and we were going to debate whether this shape was a square or not. Andrew's argument seems to be that, oh, well, that maybe fits the definition of a rhombus or a parallelogram better, and that basically those definitions are mutually exclusive. I think that a lot of people would agree that the January 6th event does fall under the definition of a riot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it also wasn't an insurrection. So if you say, oh, hey, this shape, well, it has four sides, and each of the four sides is parallel, and say, well, that's a rhombus or that's a parallelogram, that's not actually a square, then like, okay, but you haven't said what a square is. And Destiny has put forth not just a personal definition, but the legal definition that's agreed onto by lots of courts, and that's how we do laws. You know, we use courts' opinions to figure out whether this is falls under the courts, like the federal definition of what everybody agrees that is. And so the saying, oh, well, I don't have to define what a square is, if it's my definition of a rhombus, fine, then I don't see what we're arguing, because it seems like Andrew conceded that all of the criteria that Destiny laid out for his definition of insurrection, Andrew conceded that it fit within that definition. So
you cut
like
out,
he
caller.
agrees, but he doesn't like the name.
Bro, hang on. You cut out. Like me and Destiny both missed like maybe 15 seconds there.
Oh, sorry. Do you know where it was that it stopped? Basically, I'm just saying that the definition of riot and insurrection is not mutually exclusive. And so that just because he says that, oh, this fits my personal definition of a riot, does not necessarily mean that it's also not an insurrection. And the fact that they were trying to prevent some function of the government from happening, some law from being followed or carried out by the U.S. government, that's the defining factor. That's the thing that makes it an insurrection. And we can say that it was a riot, cool, but it was also an insurrection.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, would you say, and this is why I'm saying that you need to have some sort of way of saying this is not an insurrection, other than saying this is a riot.
Yeah, we've already been over this though multiple times. I know you don't understand the
This
argument.
is your
but
competition, guys.
Why it isn't.
All these callers calling in, sounding retarded from both sides, not being able to make a point, not being able to even listen to these guys during this conversation. It's funny. I like to see that the violence is definitely wearing off on Destiny as well. He's coming down. You can see he's less spurgy and less, just spastic.
Go ahead.
Okay. Who's the burden of proof on here?
It's on both of us.
No, it's not. Who's the burden of proof on?
Well, if the burden of proof to say that it's not an insurrection is on the person who's claiming that it's not an insurrection.
No, it's not my burden to say it's not. It's not my burden to say that it is.
Then you have no position on whether
the
it's an
burden of
insurrection
proof is on the person who makes the
Statement.
claim.
Yes.
Not for me to negate said claim, but for them to prove it. That's the distinction. Do you understand
So
that?
would you say you have no claim that it's not an insurrection?
You're not right. No. Answer my question. Do I need to negate a claim for you to be able to prove it? Can't you prove a claim?
Well, if your
Answer my question, dude.
Categorically does not fit the term of
Yeah, I know.
definition.
You're not answering the question, right?
Term
Okay.
insurrection.
All right.
Got it.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Whatever you say, bro.
I know you don't want to answer. It's fine. So.
All right. We'll go to next caller. And just so you guys know.
Yeah, just as a real quick thing. So like the prompt was January 6th an insurrection. Debating my definition of insurrection doesn't satisfy the prompt. It only satisfies attacking my position. But even if you did manage to completely defeat my position, not by actually showing, because you're not even really defeating my position, you're just making my position incoherent. But by doing so, you're also admitting that your position is incoherent as well, right? If you can prove that I don't have a good definition for insurrection, if you can prove that I don't have a good definition for insurrection, then you can prove that my position saying it is an insurrection is incoherent. I would have to use some other word. So you haven't even given a position at all. So at best, you've only put us both at neutral, which is.
Do you remember in the beginning of the debate where I gave you the criteria for the concessions that I would make?
Andrew's holding frame very, very well.
XYZ point.
Very well.
Yeah, but we're not here to just argue. Does Destiny have a satisfactory definition of insurrection, which is what the debate has become?
But if I have no negation, but we end up on neutral because your definition is incoherent, then do you remember when I said in my opening statement that the goal of that was to show that you no longer have the moral high ground because everything's a fucking insurrection at that point, and that means you're as much of an insurrectionist as the people you're accusing of being insurrectionists. That's the point.
To be clear, that wouldn't make everything an insurrection. That would just make all riots an insurrection.
Yeah, I was being hyperbolic.
Okay, well, that's kind of hard when you're also being illogical. But the idea is that, all you're doing is reducing us both to the same position, which seems odd at the end of the day. But
why?
Okay.
Depends on what the goal of the debate is. In this particular
case, the goal was to show that both of us are neutral on whether January 6th was an insurrection. You know that you don't actually believe that. You believe it wasn't,
if you're neutral on whether or not January 6th is an insurrection, your claim is voided.
But then so would yours be, unless your claim is...
What claim am I making? My claim
Well,
is only
if you're-
that.
if
My
you're a
claim is only that
challenger- if
you
you're a
can't demonstrate it
challenger,
was. That's it.
If I say that January 6th was an insurrection, you wanted to challenge that position. Generally, the challenge would be that January 6th wasn't an insurrection.
Yeah, a lot of
not
loaded
that
language with things
January
like
6th, not that
generally-
January 6th doesn't comport with Destiny's definition of insurrection, or I think Destiny's definition of insurrection is incoherent. That's a different kind of debate.
Well,
but-
no, I don't think it's a different kind of debate. And saying loaded things like, well, generally this means doesn't mean anything. So ultimately, if I can
Well,
reduce
generally what
if
thing
I
means
can
what?
reduce this, if I can reduce this to a neutral position, then your claim that this was an insurrection is false.
Okay, but then your claim that it wasn't an insurrection is also false.
I never made such a claim.
What is your claim? Your claim is just that you're neutral. You have no position on it.
My claim was that I could be swayed either way. That you could.
But that's not what the
convince me.
debate. The debate
You
wasn't
could
here to
convince
sway
me.
you. Well, no, you can't be convinced because you can't even accept the definition of
I
insurrection.
can.
So that's just not true.
Well, I can be convinced, and you just saying you can't be convinced doesn't mean anything again.
So are you unconvinced by historical courts that have convicted people or used these definitions of insurrection in order to write legislation or in order to write constitutional amendments? What do you think the founding fathers meant? Not founding fathers, I guess. What do you think the framers of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment meant when they said insurrection? What do you
I think that
they
they're tying it to rebellion. Because
Why would
every
they?
time,
But they very
because
clearly.
every time I saw it, it seemed to coexist with rebellion. Every single time I see this, it seems like it's a lead towards rebellion.
If you agree that it meant rebellion, why would there be so many people that draw distinctions between insurrection and rebellion?
Yeah, until it comes to charging time. When it comes to charging time, it seems that if they can't draw it towards
Hold on. Why do you
rebellion-
keep just because you're talking about charges, criminal court, and calling?
Well,
it
if you're going to
are two
appeal
different
to
things.
if you're going to appeal to authorities here based around legal definitions, it's perfectly acceptable for me to appeal to the legal authorities, which are refusing to charge under this criteria, Destiny. They're refusing to charge under this criteria for insurrection. And it seems every definition that I can find for this is somehow vaguely associated with rebellion.
Yeah, it's associated with it because they believed in every rebellion started with an insurrection, but that doesn't mean that every rebellion is an insurrection.
Yeah,
That's why they use rebellion or insurrection,
Yeah,
for instance, in
perhaps
Section
not.
2
So,
of the Second Confiscation Act. You can't give any historical things.
So I
though,
think if there was,
right?
if there
So
was
for
a
instance, they
big,
say in any
open-
rebellion or insurrection, inciting and setting foot on, assisting or engaging in any rebellion or insurrection, which is set under Section 2 of the Second Confiscation Act, they're two different things. That's why
But the reason that I think that the Supreme Court especially didn't want to hear this is because they would end up like you giving a definition which was so broad that it would encompass all sorts of things that we don't really perceive of as being insurrections, because we really associate insurrection and rebellion with the same kind of idea, which is exactly
hilarious
why I
to watch.
don't believe for a second, while you're over there saying you're good faith,
It's hilarious
that
to
you
watch.
believe for a second that if a bunch of dope smoking hippies to, kind of resist federal law went and smoked a bunch of joints on federal property and a couple of them got rowdy, you would believe that that was an insurrection. I don't believe you. I simply don't
If a
believe
bunch
you.
of people smoking weed went and started setting fire to forests in the United States of America on federal property because they were trying to get them to
No, a couple of them
overturn.
did. They started a small fire, let's say, right? Not a huge blazing forest fire. They just started a small fire. There was a little bit of rioting there, right? Somebody got beat up. A couple of them had maybe some melee weapons. I don't think we would associate that with rebellion. And so I don't think we would associate that with insurrection, which is what I think we associate with rebellion.
I'm sorry, because I don't know the logical structures of argumentation as well as you do. When you say people probably wouldn't do that, what kind of an argument are we making there? When you say that like people probably wouldn't think that's an insurrection, what kind of logical appeal are we making to challenge my definition? The people probably wouldn't think.
Yeah.
appeal?
So
what is that?
So,
what structure?
So
is
hang on.
here?
So we'll again, we're going to untangle two different ideas. So I already gave you the critique of your definition. When you ask me Andrew, what do you associate with this thing, which is your direct question? What types of things do you associate with this? I tell you. Then I say, if that's the type of thing that I associate with it, I also think most people associate that type of thing with it as well. So these are two different
I don't
ideas.
care what most people, I'm looking at the legal and historical understanding of it, right? So in the Amy Warwick Prize case, the Supreme Court said insurrection against the government may or may not culminate in an organized rebellion, but a civil war always begins by insurrection against the lawful authority of the government. A rebellion
Civil War
was
did not begin.
The Civil War didn't begin with an
No, a
insurrection?
civil war did not begin because of J6.
That it says insurrection against the government may or may not culminate in an organized rebellion.
That's correct. So it could.
So there was an insurrection against the government. It did.
There is no way in the land of fucking common sense that a guy who is openly a cuckold and openly bisexual, who is openly talking about doing all these weird sexual acts as well, okay, would rise to prominence without some kind of assistance through the manipulation of the algorithm or whatnot, because it's just, this guy is not something to look up to. And the fact that he consistently argues in bad faith, he got bodied by Jordan Peterson as well. It just shows you that this shit is all fake. It's all gay. It's all rigged. The algorithm is rigged. The shadow banning is rigged. I mean, everything is rigged. And that's why this guy has some prominence, not because of his great intellectual being, because he was so smart and stuff. Why did you send your wife off to go get porked down by multiple guys and making you watch? And that's supposed to be celebrated? Get out of here, bro.
Associative idea. This was from Roberts himself. The Supreme Court clearly did not want to weigh in on this because they were afraid of making a definition like your own, which would be so broad. Are you disputing this? Let's start with this. Are you disputing that you think the Supreme Court didn't weigh in on this because they were afraid that they could make a definition of this, which was so broad that things would fall under the category of insurrection, that they really didn't want to fall under that category?
I don't think the Supreme Court made a strong statement about insurrection.
Yeah, what do you think, though? I'm asking what you actually think.
They didn't really rule on the insurrection.
I know they didn't rule on it, but why do you think they really didn't want to hear it? Why do you think it is that this is kind of such a hard concept for people to kind of get their minds around? It's because it is somewhat nebulous. It is associated with rebellion. And yes, there's precedents for these things, but the precedents don't directly apply to what J6 was. And
it
other
doesn't matter.
things,
The issue wasn't
hang on, man. Let me finish my point, and then you can respond. Other things do seem to associate with it better. That's the point. Your definition is far too broad. You knew it would be far too broad. The Supreme Court also knows this. That's why the Supreme Court themselves, I think, really didn't want to go in and rule on it, because it would retroactively make a bunch of Democrats and Republicans insurrectionists based on other things that they have done.
That's great. And that's a bunch of reading into that Supreme Court decision that they had never said. But I'm pretty sure that the rationale that they gave in the issue was that different minds could disagree on whether or not an insurrection had taken place. And the idea that different states would make different decisions about it seemed to be very difficult for them. So
it's nebulous. It's a little bit nebulous. They can't really agree because it's kind of a nebulous concept, right?
Do you think that murder is a nebulous concept?
I think that justification for murder can be very nebulous.
Do you think that murder is a nebulous concept?
Let me
Why are you
ask
rambling?
the question.
No, I asked you a question. Do you think murder is a nebulous concept?
I'm answering the question.
Do you think murder is a nebulous concept?
I'm trying to answer the question. Whenever you're ready to let me answer.
All right. I'm going to repeat it when you're done rambling. But...
Okay, well, I'm not going to ramble. I'm going to give you an actual direct answer. Certain aspects of murder, when it comes to
That's how you hold
justification,
frame
can
right
be very
there.
nebulous. Yes. Like right to retreat laws can be very nebulous. Yes, that can constitute murder. It can be very nebulous. We have some concept of it, but it's not really something which is easily graspable. Yes, it can be very nebulous, Destiny. Yes.
And yet we still have criminal convictions for murder.
That's true. We do still have criminal convictions for murder, which does not demonstrate your point at all.
It absolutely does. If a court is capable of determining whether or not a person can have a severe
That's right.
restriction
And
to
what
their
did they
life or liberty,
determine? They determined that none of them committed insurrection.
I guarantee you, Destiny has like live notes being fed to him as well.
Determined.
Really? Where in the
Yeah, what did they charge him? Hang on, what did they charge him with? They charged him with insurrection?
The Supreme Court is not a first review.
I'm not talking about the Supreme Court.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What
then.
I'm saying
no one
to
is.
you.
I'm sorry. Where in the 14th Amendment does it say the crime of insurrection?
All you're doing is speed talking. What I'm saying to you is, when you ask me, are certain aspects of murder nebulous? Yes, of course, certain aspects of murder are nebulous. Can people still be charged on those aspects? Yes. Can they be prosecuted? Yes. But you say, well, then you can prove it. Great. I agree. You can prove it. And when these people were prosecuted, they were not prosecuted for insurrection. So clearly, they didn't think it was insurrection, or at least it seems like they didn't think it was insurrection, because they certainly didn't charge anybody with that.
Gotcha. Just as a quick spiel or whatever, because Andrew has no concept of how law or courts or anything works in the United States. The 14th Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with somebody being charged with a criminal conviction of insurrection. Criminal conviction of insurrection has nothing to do with any of this. And the question before the court in Trump v. Anderson wasn't whether or not somebody had engaged in the crime of insurrection. And the big issue that they cited to for why they rejected that case was because Section 5 of the 14th Amendment said that Congress can pass laws in order to implement something ruling, and they interpreted it as meaning Section 3 could be implemented via the Section 5 power of the Congress, and that's why they threw that case out.
Total bait and switch.
It's not a bait and switch. It's just
It
a
is.
basic understanding.
Here's why it's a bait.
All I was saying was that you saying, well, it's nebulous, therefore a court can't decide that question. Courts deal with nebulous things literally all of the time.
That wasn't my
The
claim
idea
either.
that a court can't deal with something that's nebulous like insurrection, when courts deal with things like murder or affirmative defenses like self-defense or anything else, is a ridiculous claim, and it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what courts are even supposed to do.
Except that wasn't my claim. So here's the great kind of Destiny bait and switch, right? He just did a typical bait and switch. What he did was he said this. He said, Andrew, do you think that a court can do A, B, and C, or they can in some way rule or adjudicate even with a nebulous concept? My answer was yes. I think that even with a nebulous concept, they can. In this case, right, even if we were to grant Destiny's argument that they can do this under nebulous concepts, they still didn't charge these people with insurrection, even if that's a nebulous concept. What he did instead was he did a bait and switch and said, oh, but he doesn't understand the law, blah, blah, blah,
Why
blah,
do you
blah.
keep
But this
using the
was
same
a
argument that's
lead-in.
been shot
This
down?
was a lead-in question.
Does somebody need to be charged with insurrection for insurrection to have
bro,
occurred?
let me finish my point. I just let you go through your whole diatribe.
Same gish gallop.
So I went, it's not a gish gallop.
It's a
It's
gish gallop. You're
response.
repeating debunked
You don't even know what a
arguments.
gish gallop is. You're just
I
spurting
do. It's
over
when you
me.
lay a whole bunch
So
of bad
anyway,
claims
I'm
on
not
over and
laying
over and
any
over again
claims.
with the
I'm
idea that the
refuting the claims
opponent
you made.
can't actually refute them because you keep stacking the
Bro,
same bad claims over and over again.
you made the claim. I'm refuting it. So
You're
this
not
was a
refuting anything. You're
basic. This
repeating
was
the
a
same debunked
this was a
arguments.
basic lead-in, and I proved the basic lead-in wrong. And so that's when he went off on the diatribe about, well, what the the court, blah blah blah. What about the courts? What about the precedents? Well, that had nothing to do with the actual lead-in question, which is what I was responding to. That's a classic bait and switch.
You said that the Supreme Court didn't rule on the definition because it was too nebulous. That's not
Because
true.
you
That's
asked
not why they
me-
rejected it.
You asked me, why do you think the Supreme Court acts? And so I just gave you my opinion. I think possibly it's because this is a nebulous concept. They didn't want to weigh in. It seems that Roberts agreed. When you read initially what Roberts said, it seems like that's what he's saying there, is that there's going to be a lot of disagreement here because we can't quite agree on this. That sounds nebulous to me.
All right. How about this? We'll take one more caller, and then we'll go to the Castle Club guys.
Destiny
Let's get
conceded.
that guy on
Destiny's
the line.
done. The Vivance is wearing off.
Go ahead.
0789.
0789. Go ahead, hit the line. And then
Ralph, good point. Ralph says he likes to mock you when you have a point. Yeah, he tries to downplay. He's like he's like the Joker. He just tries to distract people. He distract people from the point that he's losing. He's like, oh, what you just said is so silly. He makes an outrageous statement like, oh, so you think all white people are insurrectionists? Is that what you're saying?
Awesome. Great. Mr. Wilson, big fan, Absolute Cinema. And I have a question for Mr. Borelli. If I knew what sexual assault was, but I had no fucking clue what rape was, could you ever prove to me that a rape took place? Because I think
No, because whatever definition you give, whatever definition I give for rape, you're just going to say with sexual assault. Yeah. No, true. Yeah. If you had no idea what rape was, but you knew well what sexual assault was, then any single time I try to define, well, I think a rape has occurred, you would just say, no, I think this fits with sexual assault. You would never give a definition of rape, and then you would just use that to try to win the argument. Yeah.
He left.
I think you left. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll go ahead and start switching on over to the Castle Club members. I'll hit a couple of these hands, and then I do have something that I was going to bring up to the panel. Who's the first person on, Bills? All right, we're going to go ahead. And just for the guys on Castle Club that are waiting, we're not going to put you on camera because we're live on YouTube and all the platforms, so I want to protect your guys' identities. But we'll go ahead and get the first person in that had something, Bills. Do we have them ready? Yeah, locals only. Yeah, Castle Club. Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Uh-oh. And there it is. So that's the end of that mess. So here's the deal. I'm not going to go on and do any more of this stuff. Shout out to the boys making their money, doing their things with the Castle Club. Big supporter of the Fresh and Fit podcast. I'm very proud of those guys and all the success they've achieved. And they have absolutely helped us in this gigantic smorgasbord of culture war. But like I said, I'm pretty sure Destiny's paid by somebody. He definitely gets preferential treatment in the algorithm. He definitely makes no good arguments. He got completely bodied when he debated those two Jewish guys. And then on top of that, he also got completely bodied by Jordan Peterson, and he just got completely bodied by Andrew. But knowing Destiny and his sexual preferences, he probably gets off when strong masculine men dominate him, because that's how the love he's looking for and that he never received from his father. That's why he's such a fucked up individual. That's why your inner game is so important, guys. We're going to be back tomorrow with the free consultation Friday call. But don't forget, if you want to join us in the community of men, we're launching here on the 1st of August. The Masculine Empowerment Network is rocking and rolling. We are going strong. We have 60 something plus people on the waiting list right now. If you want to join a network of men who will be engaging in a year-long journey of self-improvement, where we're going to teach you all the things you need to do to make more money, make more muscles, learn more game, have more frame, have your inner game sorted out, and just be in a community of men who want to do better, who do not want to sit online and argue like a bunch of children, but actually want to look at their life, have it analyzed by a group of experts, and show you how we're going to help you get more money, get a better job, lose that weight, get that date, and feel good about yourself and have rock solid frames. So you don't have to go through life feeling insecure. You don't have to go through life feeling like you're just getting bullied or no one really believes you. And when you're saying things, no one respects you. We're going to teach you all those things and more. The Masculine Empowerment Network. So go to masculineempowermentnetwork.com, put your best email address in right here in the little box, and then right here. And then you can also scan the QR code and we're going to sort you out. We have a whole dating course that's going to show you how to talk to girls, text game, cold approach, talking to girls at night, how to escalate, how to not be a weird creep in your relationship too, so you don't have like a bunch of scandalous text messages flying off the rails everywhere like Destiny has right now with all his previous sexcapades and all his weird perversion. We're going to show you how to channel your sexual energy and release it in a positive, consensual, like, you know, normal way, which is quite the asset in today's weird world. That's going to do it for us today, guys. So go to masculineempowermentnetwork.com, get on the waiting list. Thanks for all you guys for watching. Seriously, all you guys who watch me and support me. What's the link for the monthly coaching? The monthly coaching is modernlifedating.com. Go to modernlifedating.com and click the Go Coaching. We'll get you in there. That's including Telegram chat. We're going to continue moving forward. And if you guys want to get a free sample of what it's like to be in our community, there's a link in the description box below to join the Inner Game July free coaching group. We have like 200 people in there, about 190-ish, give or take. Join a community of men. Don't let this just be some digital thing that you're involved in that's just like a passive thing that you're doing. Take the stance of, I'm going to improve my life. Take the stance. If you want to change the country, if you want to change your life, you have to become better. Okay, you have to change who you are, because the reason you don't have what you want is because you're not worthy yet of receiving it. You have to transform. You have to change, and the change will be painful, but it'll be far more painful if you just neglect this and go and lead a life of quiet desperation. There is no need for you to suffer. There's no need for you to feel alone. There's no need for you to feel isolated. Join us. We've been doing this for 5 years. Look at all the people who have come out of my community, people changing the world, fresh and fit, fucking you name it. I mean, all these guys, Jordan Kurtz from Hypnosis. We have Ryan Fowler for his brand as well with his Hypnosis. We have so many big names coming out here. Andrew from the Legal Mindset, the whole 9 yards. So join us and we will help you get what you want in life. And I'll be answering all your questions here for free. Okay, for free tomorrow. Give me a call, 657-383-1318 on the free consultation Friday show. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out and love you.